Welcome to the Subtitled Anime Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas. And with me today, we have my good friend and UFO extremist, Jack Johnson, under the scope. What's up, bro?
You know, it's a sad day. It's been, as of this recording, it's been 1 week without UFO, and I'm already going through withdrawals.
1 week without UFO. When I had to wake up on Friday without checking the @anime UFO Twitter account for a preview of the next episode, I had this emptiness inside of me. I was like, well, what are we gonna manically analyze all day? What are we gonna do? Where's the hope and where's the doomerism?
Yeah. No, I mean, waking up that first morning without a new episode ready to go, that hurt. That hurt.
It really did. And it's kind of like we had this privilege of having our favorite show back for, the last few months. And, when it started, it felt a little surreal. Like, wow, this show's back. This thing that we love is back. This thing that we had, that we thought, frankly, there was a point that we weren't sure if we'd get more of it ever again. Considering everything that's happened, from between the release of the Chicano finale film and now, and then, so going from that to like, holy shit, it's like over because when season 2 ended, that was okay, we're done. There were no more novels other than little side stories, that were it. Like after season 2, Jack, we were done. And then we got these announcements. So really we've had this, like, we've been strung along with the promise of more UFO for years until now. Now it's just done.
Yeah. No, I mean, because even when season 2 ended, like, I mean, sure, it was my favorite anime back then, but now this is a decade of our lives that we've been following this franchise. And, and especially when season 3 started, like it had also been so long since we actually watched it on a week-to-week television, format. So that we hadn't had that like fan community experience back since season 2, 6-7 years ago. And now, and unlike any of the other anime, there's not even the chance of more, at least as it pertains to Kumiko's story. Whether they did any UFO spinoff in the future, as far as Kumiko's story is concerned, like, this is over. It's it.
I think that's interesting that you say that, because when, you're correct. When season 2 aired, we had like this week-to-week community. But dude, when the films came out, like I watched Listen to Bluebird at Anime Expo, and that was only like, a few, like maybe a few hundred people got to be there for that. Like most of the fandom, most of the community didn't watch it, right? So it's like I didn't get to share that for a while with the rest of the UFO fans. And then Chikai was a similar thing because at least, you and I, we were blessed with getting a screener copy to do videos on it. So you, me, our friend Isla, the Pedantic Romantic, a couple other YouTubers, we got it, but like that wasn't the community at large. And then Oncon came out, and that was maybe the first time, but that's an OVA. So not everybody was watching it at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. This was different. This was like, we are back.
Well, because even when, even with like a movie, even if everybody is watching it and talking about it at the same time, you're getting the whole chunk of story at once. It's completely different than a week-to-week viewing experience where you're going to have people whinging every week. You're going to have people theory crafting and this and that, and us trying to piece together where we think it's going. And I'm sure we'll get into some of the whinging in a bit.
We will, for sure.
But no, that's something that was missing for sure.
You manically analyze every, all 22 odd minutes of an episode. When it's like a film or something, you don't have like that micro analysis, because, you're just trying to like, if you're going to get you're going to fire off a couple tweets, it's going to be more broad. You're not going to go into like these specifics. So it's just been nice. It's been nice. And now it's over. It's over. And I think it ended. Let's talk about what we loved. Right. Sure. And I want to start with the penultimate episode, which I think is in contention for the best episode of UFO. I think it's in contention for the best episodes of anime I've ever seen. And I want to say something, because last time I got YouTube comments mad. There are going to be spoilers. We're going to talk about the ending of the show. We're going to talk about everything. So just before I say anything, I had people in the comments last time be like, you guys spoiled the whole show. Yeah, this is a podcast talking about the show. So please, if you've made it here, we are going to talk a lot about everything that happened. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. If not, thank you. Let's stay right here. But Kumiko, a lot of the plot, there have been a couple like kind of tying threads, and the one big plot point has been who's playing the Soli with Reina, and it was between Kumiko. Kumiko won the first one. Mayu, that was the big twist that we talked about last pod. The first tower, Osama bin Laden, right? That was like the big thing. And we thought at the time, and we were like, okay, well, Kumiko's gonna Umaki Naridai her way back. She's gonna win back her Soli. She's gonna win back her woman. And this is gonna be all happy go lucky. We're gonna get to nationals. We're gonna win gold. And that's not what happened. And Ihara and Juki Haneda, they went to Takeda, the original writer of the novels, and are like, hey, we have a proposal. And the proposal was to change who won for the Soli and make it Mayu over Kumiko. Jack, I was stunned. We had been talking about it, like leading up. We're like, no, she's gonna win. And then a couple days before the episode aired, we started to have some doubts.
Yeah. It was really episode 11 that I think like cemented those doubts in me that like this might be going in a completely different direction than we thought the whole season. Because I think you and I pretty much like felt the whole way that we were in their heads, like, okay, Mayu's gonna win. If she doesn't win the first one, she's gonna win the Kansai one, and that's good.
She had to win one.
Right. She had to win one. But we were always all along just assuming that Kumiko was going to turn around and, find that dog in her and pull out the nationals audition. So we got that performance between her and Reina. But, I think when we talked last time, we talked about the fact that we were waiting for that Umaku Naritai moment for Kumiko, right? And I think a big part of it is because of the first trailer that we got for season 3 had a shot of her running across the bridge, just like from season 1. But when that moment came, it wasn't about Kumiko finding the internal drive for herself to improve. It was about how can she voice her thoughts to help the group and help be a leader. And ultimately, that's what season 3 was about. It wasn't about Kumiko, finding this drive within her to be the best UFO player. It was about being the best leader that she can be. And so I think as we got closer to that penultimate episode, like it just became clearer that while it would be the most emotionally satisfying thing to see Kumiko win just because we love her and we root for her and we want to see, we love Reina too. And we want to see the two of them have that moment together on stage at nationals. But from a thematic standpoint, I think it's pretty clear that this was the better direction for the anime to go. And I'm not saying that, I can't even comment on the novels and whether or not, how it works in the novels because I haven't read them. But
soon you can. Team Omai is finishing.
That's correct. They are being they are fan translated, so and they'll be. I know at least soon. One of the parts is released already. But yeah, so I haven't read them yet though, so I no comment on whether or not that how it handles there. But as far as what was presented in the anime and the themes that they've been building throughout this season and really throughout the entire show, this was the more compelling direction to take the narrative. I know you and I are both in agreement on that, and this certainly sparked some debate among fans. A lot of fans are just, like I said, I think people just wanted to see Kumiko win without care for the direction that it was going. But, I have to give tons of kudos to Juki Haneda because it's not an easy decision to make at all. Especially when you are changing the source, making such a drastic, you're literally changing the whole climax of the entire series.
And really the ending, like the how satisfied, a viewer is at the end of, in the performance that is really the only competition performance that we get in the TV anime runtime.
Yeah. And, and it's not just Kumiko either. I mean, I think for all of the different characters, it is a more interesting decision to have Kumiko lose to Mayu. I mean, you look at Mayu's perspective, the whole thing with her and the scene between her and Kumiko before the audition, where they're talking about where Mayu kind of reveals her backstory, how she was in this position before, and her old friend, essentially kept saying
doesn't have that
she
dog
can handle it. Yeah, that Mayu was consistently better than her, and her old friend was like, it's fine, but eventually reached a breaking point and they had a falling out, and she was afraid of that exact same thing happening again. And so, what's the best way to test that? Is to put Mayu and Kumiko in that same position. I mean, if Kumiko beats Mayu, you're not actually testing whether or not, Kumiko is different from Mayu's old friend, or if Mayu is still willing to, give it her all. By having Mayu win, you're showing that Mayu does genuinely want this. You know, it wasn't that she wasn't telling Kumiko like, oh, you know, I'll forfeit if you want. She wasn't doing that because she didn't want the piece. She was doing that because she was afraid of the ramifications and potentially creating that rift. But by having her clearly give her all and go for the win, you know, you're showing that. And then by having Kumiko lose, you're putting Kumiko in a position that tests just how strong of a leader that she's become. And she passed it with flying colors, because the speech that she gives afterwards is one of my favorite scenes from the season.
So that episode had one thing from the novel, and it was the conversation that Taki had with Kumiko, where you know, they have this conversation of like, you know, what kind of adult do you want to be?
Yeah.
Right. And then I think the ultimate answer was a person who's true in the real sense of that is fair. Right. And I think that the narrative choice to let Mayu win specifically off popular vote, right? Because like her biggest anxieties were like, people, you know, Kumiko's like, everybody wants this. She's like, who's everyone? Right? Kind of tying back Kanade in Chikai and Asuka in season 2, right? Like, who is this everybody that you talk about? And I think that UFO, especially in season 3, there was a lot of this in year 2, but really in season 3, it really comes together about like this lineage, this heritage that Kitauji builds, right? And it's kind of like, can the culture endure the hardest decision of like, this is Mayu's not somebody that we've gone to fucking war with for 3 years, right?
Yeah,
Mayu's not my senpai that has like been with me for a few years. Mayu's not my comrade for the last 3 years in band and in class and all that. Like, she is a new person who literally wore a different uniform for the first like 3-4 episodes. Like, she is like so visibly an outsider that they put her in different clothes to like show like this person does not feel comfortable, is not integrated the way that everybody else is.
Everything with the camera.
The fact that in your one of your YouTube shorts, you did a great job of like, she's taking pictures. She's not in the picture, she's taking them, right? Like, she's like this she's so removed from the community. And the fact that it was a blind audition, and that scene's great too when Kumiko says that and Taki's like, I have a lot to learn, right? Like, just things he didn't consider.
And again, it shows how fair of a person she is and she's become. Absolutely.
And her winning off that, right? Off like genuine meritocracy, and more important than anything, off of Rena's vote. The two people in the narrative that are held up as musical geniuses are Rena and Taki, right? Like, I think Midori would probably come in third, but those are the two that are like really like, these people are like the authorities of music. And Rena, and we're going to get into kind of that dynamic in a second, voted Mayu knowing it was Mayu, right? Like, made the, you know, and you talk about like, Mayu's like, who wants this? The person who wanted to play with Kumiko the most, knowingly voted for Mayu.
Probably even more than Kumiko herself. Like, I do think that Reina, of anybody, cared about it the most. She was always the one who brought it up to Kumiko.
I mean, it was important to both of them, but yeah,
certainly.
For Reina, like, she kept saying, no, it's going to be you and me at the end. That is the message that you want to give, right? That's like, that is showing that the culture can endure anything, because then they turn around and they win, right? So not only do they do that, everybody gets on board, they turn around and they win. And I think that leading up to that, Kumiko did get personal. She's like, she put her personal feelings about feeling that she should have played over being a leader, over other things. And Asuka calls her out on it. Asuka's like, you're being selfish. You want your cake and you want to eat it too. And that kind of like is the thing that kind of turns the wheels on like, okay, she kind of has to get right. And I think losing puts her in a much more interesting position than her winning. I think her winning is more satisfying. Like, you know, as somebody who's watched the show for a decade. And I think that's what a lot of people on Twitter were saying, Jack. Like, they're like, hey, she deserves this. She's done this. You know, we've watched her. Like, I just want to watch my girl get a win. That's safe. This is this has so much more punch. This is so much more memorable. This is the kind of shit that endures, right? Like, this is trying to fucking say something. You know what I mean? And then we get the scene on the mountain that we'll get into now. That is arguably the greatest scene in the show. But That's what you can't shaft Mayu and validate all her anxieties about the band. That's not what kind of narrative would that be? Kumiko lost. She put her personal devastation aside and was the leader that like she had to be. And that's the message that I think UFO wants to have. I don't think like we pour our heart and soul into things no matter what the result is. Like that's what UFO is about. Like in year 2, Kumiko has that speech while she's like running, kissing after Kanade. Like we try and we try and we try and we fail and we fail and we fail. And it doesn't matter because we'll just keep going because like that's what it's about. And that's why it's just perfect to me. It's UFO.
It puts all three of them, Kumiko, Mayu, and Reina, in a position where they have to do the more difficult thing in order to stay true to themselves. Where, Mayu has to, like, the easy thing for her, if she was so afraid of causing this rift, would have been to throw the competition, right? But it puts her in a position where, in order to stay true to, her belief as a competitor, she has to give it her all. It puts Kumiko in a position where she has to stick by the system that she has so, like tried to establish and fight for so much with the meritocracy that they've created. And then it puts Reina in a position where she has to stick to her guns about the same thing, about, the best should be the ones that play. She's very much, going all the way back to season 1 with Kaori, she's very much, that's who she is. And her making, if she thought that Mayu was better, it's perfectly consistent characterization for her to pick her. And then even Taki, I did see a few people were wondering, like, well, why did Taki even have the re-audition in the first place? And I thought this was a perfect way to just kind of very low key, like solve the whole issue with Taki not having the trust of the band, because that wasn't really resolved. At the like right before Kansai, Kumiko gives her speech, and that sort of like it reinvigorates everybody and gets them all like, okay, like we can.
And then they get a result.
And they get a result, right? But as far as like the band's belief in his decision making and who should play, like I think that it was still extremely close between Kumiko and Mayu. And so at the end of the day, if Taki thinks that either Kumiko or Mayu are just as capable of giving them the best shot at gold, then put it up to the band to decide. And I think that was clear that they were so close and so even that like Taki was like, you know what, you guys like are struggling with this decision, so why don't we believe in this meritocracy that we've created, and why don't we let everyone make the choice? Because at the end of the day, like I do think that Taki fully believed that either choice, they're both great players. And the fact that the band's vote literally came down to one split decision shows that. But so, yeah, no, I think, because even, correct me if I'm wrong, but even the re-audition was also completely anime original.
The re-audition was anime original.
Yeah.
So the mountain scene, anime original. Yeah, Yuki Hanada cooked.
And so, that's where we can head next, because it all leads up to that scene on the mountain.
The best scene in the show.
Kumiko's
do you feel that way?
All comes out. I have to agree. And to be honest, I do think that this is probably the best episode of the show.
It's the most consequential episode of anime I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
I think I think it's just genuinely one of the and I've been recently watching The Bear. Shout out to The Bear. Shout out to Carmi. Great. You know what I mean? I saw Forks. Peak fiction ass episode.
That episode's so good. Yeah.
And I thought about, man, The Bear's kind of UFO coded. And I just wanted to say that I'm watching The Bear and I think it's UFO coded. That has no bearing on anything. I just wanted to throw that out.
No bearing.
But yeah, genuinely one of the most consequential episodes of television I've seen. Obviously, like my favorite show, and it is, I think, the moment that I'll think about the most in the kind of going forward in the future. I mean, just from Reina sobbing on the mountain, and then Kumiko kind of is like, hey, like it's okay, like she was better, blah blah blah, and then like because I think Kumiko thinks that Reina, voted for Mayu, not knowing who was who, and that Reina felt bad about voting against Kumiko. And then, this is my Roman Empire, Reina says, how would I not recognize your sound? And it had dawned on Kumiko, like, oh, she's not crying because she feels like she made a mistake. She's crying because she knows exactly what she did.
Yep.
And I saw this tweet and it said like only UFO would like make Rena make that decision and then them go to the place where they fell in love and then for Kumiko to tell her, I knew you wouldn't pick me. And
Yeah.
that's okay. And it's just devastating because then they're just sobbing on this mountain and you have like this resolution of like Kumiko kind of finally saying, I think, something that I've wanted her to say for a long time. Because I think like Kumiko's always giving Rena these assurances of like, it's okay. Like, I care about you a lot and we're going to be together forever. Like, don't worry. And I think like she kind of gives voice to like, I wanted to earn this so that I could stand shoulder to shoulder with you even when we're apart. Because I think
Yep.
that she like deep down had these anxieties too. And I think not only was it,
they were beautifully voiced in that scene with Mamiko in the previous episode. Like she was very much low key feeling this. Yeah.
and it's like I think you kind of need that, right? Like I think that they needed, you know, we talked about the prior episode when they go to the music the Musore performance and we were like, "Oh, this is probably the last word on Kumire that we get for the series," right? Um and we were wrong. And this is actually the perfect note to
Yeah.
end to give um to end on because I think it kind of wraps up all their anxieties, everything, and gives them like their real moment of parting when like much like Liz and the Bluebird, which I think that the series constantly tries to go back to
Yep.
as this motif. It kind of like, okay, like this is bittersweet, kind of this bittersweet parting, but like we care about each other and we'll be here forever. And it was just like it was the most painful like 7 minutes of television I've ever seen.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the Liz and the Bluebird connection because it's something that like I think we kind of like felt was going to be coming for a long time. But I think the way that season 3 portrayed Kumire connects Liz so wonderfully. Because I think before season 3, Liz is kind of like it's a little bit like just people are like, oh, there's UFO and then there's also Liz, and Liz is like amazing in its own little vacuum, right? But like this season really loops and connects Liz with the rest of the franchise because the parallels between Nozomi and Mizore and Kumiko and Reina in this season in particular are man painful.
That's what it's all fucking about.
That's what it's all about.
Because even in Chikai, like they're on the mountain and Rena's like, man, this Liz and the Bluebird thing makes you think, huh?
Yeah.
And and then in Oncon, the OVA, they have like kind of these similar dynamics of like, Kumiko's thinking like if someone better comes, well, Rena choose me, like are we gonna part? And Liz is kind of like constantly threaded, all the moments, the moment with Mizore and Nozomi in this season, just the fact that I think they mentioned Liz by name a couple times, like in this season, like the fact that, and I tweeted at some point that the difference between Kumiko and Mizore is Kumiko never wants to cage her bird, right? Like Mizore has that moment in Liz where she says, "God, why did you show me how to open the cage?" You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, how could you give me this decision to make? How could you put that on me, Ricky Bobby? And Kumiko never does that.
Yeah.
She never cages her bird. She always tells Rena. That's why she wanted Rena to make that decision. And I think that's a disconnect that I think a lot of the fans have. They call Rena like a backstabber and they say like, how could she do that to Kumiko? And I think that, and Kumiko even says, it's just text. He's like, I never want you. I always want you to be you. And I knew that you would pick who was best. That's why I wanted this done. Like she wanted that. And that's the difference between Kumiko and Nozomi. And that's why I think that their relationship is so special. Because like she wants her, they both want each other to be their best no matter what it takes.
Yeah. No, and I think that like, especially because of the fact that the direction you're going with Kumiko's future is the fact that she is going to become a teacher. Like really honing in on that, sort of like the fact that Kumiko she does not have it cut out to be a professional euphonium player. And that's a really bitter pill to swallow. And episode 11 does a great job, I think, of showing just how like she she never voices it, but just the way that it's directed and everything, and just like the sort of like close up cuts on her face or like on her chest as she's watching Mizore during the concert, just really give it that sort of like just biting feeling of that realization that's hitting her. That's like, I don't see myself on that stage. And whether or not that's something, you know, she was already wishy-washy whether or not that's something she wanted, but I think that realization still hits really hard to know that, like, man, I'm like, that's not something I can do. And that's an extremely relatable direction to take your young adult character, you know, your young character moving into adulthood. I think that's something a lot of people, most of us probably, can relate to. And I was really like, how often does anime actually tackle a future arc like this, especially this well?
And with
But in general,
failure. Like, you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
usually
Like
anime
so
is like,
often,
yeah,
yeah, it's achieving your dreams and this and that, you know, or maybe like either that or you'll get graduation arcs where it's like it feels like everyone's going off to die. You know, I mean, it's like we're graduating high school and we're never going to
it's
see and
so
talk to each
over.
other again, and our lives are so over. Yeah, and it's like it's tragic,
Well,
right?
UFO season 2 is
Um,
kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
goodbye,
um,
Asuka senpai.
yeah, pretty much, yeah, yeah. And certainly the ending of, you know, Kumiko and Reina's relationship as it is now, it has its own tragic elements to it, right? But the way that it really focuses on the paths that they're each going to take and the beauty in that, and finding something, both of them finding something that fulfills them. Obviously, Reina going to America to be a pro, but also Kumiko finding something that she's really good at, you know, that only she can do. You know, like Reina couldn't do that.
No.
God no.
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, something that is fulfilling to her. I thought it was handled beautifully for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the build up to this was so good. I love and I believe you mentioned this in your short for that episode of the Mizore performance where
Hmm.
Kumiko's in the crowd and like you get like, you know, she's like up in the, you know, up in the stands, and there's like this light, you know, that's lit from below. And it's like this light that is not omitted by her, right? So she's like basking
Yeah,
in this light that isn't hers, that is Mizure. And you know, you can kind of feel like she's like, oh, I can't picture myself there. Like
yeah.
I'm not her.
And then
And
Mizure literally just tells her that.
Mizure is so dude, that was crazy.
Mizure is an ice cold killer. That was brutal.
I think it was Kevin, you know, like when no, Mizore is just beelines to them, to Nozomi.
Yeah, yeah,
And Kevin called her a Nozomi seeking missile.
yeah.
And I that's all I'm going to ever think of her as now.
Yeah.
Nozomi seeking. It was one of the funniest things. Yeah, and she just straight up tells her, like, nah, I can't. And then they, you know, Kumire has that confrontation, that little moment, and where Reina's like, well, I'm breaking up with you because, you know, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
And Kumiko kind of like, man, Reina's so fucking real.
Yeah.
I
Reina's like,
feel
let's
that.
just end it now. Might as
Which
like
that annoys me that people just like, I feel like she's the most misunderstood character in the series. I think that people view her at face value and they don't like actually think about like who she is, why she is the way she is, and the reason why Kumiko likes her so much.
Mhm.
And I think that gets disconnected, and she's actually like a really sweet, caring, scared person who, by the way, apologized, which when Rena's not an apology person,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So that's another thing. But you know, regardless, like they have this moment, and then you say in your short as well, Kumiko goes on that bridge, the Omaku Naritai bridge, where she got that dog in her in season 1, and she's
Yeah.
walking the opposite direction to which she ran.
Yep.
And I think that's like poignant. I think that's important. Also very funny that when because you know she lives, you know, you get off you get off the station and you make a right. You know, I don't know why she crossed the bridge like that. She didn't have to. That's the bridge, you know, that so the
She was making a
station, you
point.
know, as somebody who's been to Uji, the station that they got home from school, the one where Kumire had the hug, you know, the make the
Yeah.
I love you hug and everything, that's the station that goes to the school. And then if you cross if you get off the station and just walk straight, that's when she does the bridge run, right? Because
Mhm.
that scene is directly after her leaving. She crosses the bridge and she runs. All the way at the other end of the station is the JR line that goes into Kyoto. That takes you to Kyoto Station, which is funny because they had to take that probably to go to the performance. So they're walking home. Kumiko's walking the bridge because she has to cross the bridge to go home because her house is on the other side of the bridge. So that Umaku Naritai scene, she just ran down that bridge for no reason. She doesn't live that way. So it's just funny. Little UFO history. But yeah, I thought that was really.
She just knew that the setting there was so peak, that it just had to be.
So Jack and I were going to Japan this November, so we're really excited. I'm giving you the breakdown of the land, the lay of the land. Damn it!
I cannot wait to be in Uji. Yeah, it's gonna be great, especially now that UFO's over. I mean, like if we had gone when we originally planned before COVID, we had planned to go during COVID, and then it got canceled because of that. I think that it's going to hit even harder now that it's over.
It's over, and they're going to have stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so that was a little funny that I've always found funny about the layout of Uji, but I do think it's poignant that, like she's walking the opposite direction in which she ran, and kind of like almost that was a really good scene because it kind of just like really closes I think that really kind of closed like the chapter on her future. I think that's when it really was decided, and then the next episode was the closure of her as a musician.
Yeah, I think that one thing too is I think people maybe misread, to me at least, what UFO is like all about a little bit, in the sense that I think a lot of people kind of felt like UFO is about it's about hard work and how you're going to fail, but persevering through that failure will pay off. But I don't necessarily think that that's what it is. I think that's the fact that hard work might not pay off, but that
hell yeah, brother, dreams are a con.
Dreams are a con, but that trying has value in and of itself. That regardless of the outcome, regardless of the result, striving for something great is worth it. And I mean, Kumiko, that's also literally the text. Like even here even in the finale, when it does pay off, Kumiko is walking up to receive their award, telling herself, believing in the fact that everything we've put into this was already worth it. She literally says like the result doesn't matter based on what we've already done. Now, still want
winning's nice.
Winning is great. Yeah, it's great. But that is why I think it's important that she did have that element of failure to this ending. Because failure coursed throughout the entirety of UFO from the very, very, very first scene.
Yes.
Literally opens with it. And for Kumiko, it was the fact that the failure, like, it didn't bother her. It didn't phase her. That was always the difference. That was the difference between her and Reina at the start. And that's why she was so passive. And that's part of the reason that I think that this scene on the mountain in episode 12 is sort of a perfect culmination to that element of UFO. Is the fact that Kumiko's as frustrated. She's so upset. Yeah, she's as frustrated as she's ever been. She's just like Reina was back in the very first scene of the show.
Even when she's moved on, even when she's mentally been like, I'm not doing this as a career, and it's still like
it still hurts.
It still hurts.
And and we needed that reaction out of her. Like it was, I loved the speech that the scene with the speech that she gives at the end. Like just shows how great of a leader she is. But if we just get that and we don't get the frustration, like we're missing something, because she did care deeply.
Because that would be the character regression that people were alleging that she had.
Yeah.
Right.
People were alleging that, oh, she doesn't care anymore, but that's clearly not the case. Yeah. It's that she needed to project an image of strength for the group. She needed to put her own feelings down and quiet them for a minute because that's what a strong leader does. Right. They're a rock for everybody. When the times are toughest. But the one person she can let that mask down for is Reina.
Which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
She did it for Kanopi.
No, yeah, even for Kanopi, who herself was sobbing because, she wanted to. She was her senpai, right? She was the person that Kanopi can look up to.
She was the Yuko.
Yeah, exactly.
That girl's gonna grow up to be president.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so like you get the Kanopi scene where I think, and Kanopi has that line that something to the effect of like, how could how else I have to move on after what you forced me to watch.
Yeah.
Which is just so fucking bad. It's so fun,
man. I love Kanade. I can't believe how high up my character rankings.
She's top 5 and she ain't 5. We're gonna get into we're gonna rank our characters at the end. I think that'd be like a fun activity to close the pod with. But I mean, she was sensational, and we'll kind of like at the end we'll use that as an avenue to talk more specifically about kind of characters as a whole. But I mean, that the show, you're right, her arc's not complete. The whole full circle is not complete without that. And I don't think people know this. Originally, Takada UFO was going to be one novel, and they were going to lose in Kyoto. That was like her original plan for UFO. It was they were going to where season 1 ends, they were going to get dud gold. That's what she wanted to do, and the editor's like, "Nah, let's do more." So she changed the series, and again, when they didn't have Liz and all these other things planned, they lost. You know what I mean? So it's like UFO, as you said, it is about failure. Jikai is about failure. It's about like them having to deal with it, having to deal with expectations, having to deal with failure. Season 3 is about kind of, again, it's even, and failure, I think, is a more individual thing. Like in season, like in season 1 was for Kumiko, where, you know, Kumiko is like struggling to keep up musically with the demands of Taki. And then this season, you know, she's struggling to kind of keep up with herself, right? She's not, it's not that she's not meeting her instructor's demands, because she's, I think, you know, articulate enough as a player, but, you know, can she kind of beat the me that is you? You know what I mean? Like, she's that scene in Heaven's Feel. Can you keep up with me?
Yeah.
You know, to her inner Emio Archer self. And that's really brilliant. And I think this season really ties everything together in UFO really, really nicely, from kind of what we talked about, this idea of failure, from the stuff that's talking about in Liz, about parting, about moving on, about self-improvement, to the stuff in season 1 about like finding your passion, honing your passion. Like, what does that mean? Because like we just said, even till the end, she sobbed on the mountain. Because she's like, I want to earn this. She says, I wanted to win by being better. I wanted to play with you in the end. I'm so damn upset. I want to do my best to be proud of this feeling. If that's not somebody who cares so profoundly for the love of the game, it's just pure love of the game for her.
Yeah,
it's perfect, and it's perfect to end it that way. And this is the only way that you could have given Kumiko that tight character arc, and also give Mayu the character arc that she deserves, while giving the right message of Kitauji is a meritocracy. Even though Mayu is an outsider, she was better and deserved it. Because again, if Mayu fails, what does that? If Mayu doesn't win the Soli, what is interesting narratively for Mayu there? Like what?
Yeah.
What's the purpose? It just validates. She's like, yeah, nobody did fuck with me. I was right. What kind of lesson? What kind of lesson is that? Because she was right. People didn't fuck with her, and it didn't matter, because it's about who can hoop.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's why Kumiko wanted it to be a blind audition, because Kumiko knew that people would have their own biases. She wanted to remove that.
The fucking other part that's so good is Kanade. She's like, I want to play with you. Don't fuck this up. And Kumiko's like, I want you to listen carefully and vote for who's better. And Kanapi is the only other person I believe that knew who was who, because she's the only other Euphonium player, and she's also good. The only reason they didn't pick her is because they went with the extra tuba. It wasn't a referendum on her talent. It was Taki wanted more bass and the sound, and that was a very like tactical musical decision.
So he was just not going to have 3 UFOs. So Kanade would have had to beat out either Kumiko or Mayu, which you know
ain't happening. You it's not the protagonist or Osama bin Laden that you're going after. So, you know, she's the last person to vote, and she stops and she pauses. She votes for Kumiko, but she knew who was who, and she knew who was better. And I think that the way that they directed that scene was really good. And I think who voted for everybody was good. Shuichi voted for Kumiko. Midori voted for Kumiko. Hazuki voted for Mayu. And I think Hazuki voting for Mayu is really important, because Hazuki is like, no, I think like whoever is best should play, because Hazuki got fucked every year by not being good enough. And
she said it was her motivation.
Yes.
that meritocracy, that she knew all I need to do to get on that stage is to be better. And that motivated her.
And Midori voted for Kumiko. Again, it's pretty unclear if she knew. But I'm pretty sure. I mean, for sure, the narrative wanted you to know that Reina knew because she just said it, and I think Kanade because it was directed. And I think Midori, if she knew, I think that is pretty impactful for its own reason, because in season 1 she wanted Kaori to just play it because she was about the vibes. She's like, I think that to compete, we need to have good morale and good vibes, and I think that Kaori, even though that Reina's better, I think that we should just let Kaori do it. And I think she felt the same way about Kumiko. Like, hey, the morale is just better if Bucho plays, and they're equally good. And she voted Kumiko. And I just think that those little details. And I think Shu voted Kumiko as well because he probably like wanted like his homegirl to play, right? Like if he recognized as well. And that's why I think it's just it hit so much harder that Reina voted for what was right, not what she wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what Kumiko wanted. And Kumiko says as much. Like, I knew that you would do this.
Yeah.
That's why I did it.
One thing I want to say too is like I've seen a lot of people, go back and forth on whether or not like there's been a lot of people's like I don't even think Mayu was better, so I think they were wrong. And it's like, okay, well I've seen people who are like actual musicians say that Kumiko was better, and I've also seen some say that Mayu was better. So I don't know. All I know is it certainly sounds like the music team, whoever is actually like performing these, did a very good job of making them very close. I'm not musically inclined at all, so it's hard for me to even say. But it definitely seems like I've seen such a split decision amongst the actual like fan community that they did a pretty good job of making the two of them extremely tight.
Which I think is kind of the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it should be close, right? Like it's supposed to be that they're pretty even and there's room for disagreement, right? Like Taki's like kind of made it clear that hey, it's like hair splitting, and even Kumiko's like, wow, we were close, but that little doubt I had was the difference in our play.
Play. Yeah, and with Reina too, whether or not Mayu was better or Kumiko was better, as far as Reina is concerned and her characterization, Reina thought Mayu was better. That's what matters here. Regardless of what any of us think about who was better, Reina thought Mayu was better, and that's why she had to vote for her.
And again, the story is always kind of telling us that her musical ear is the most honest.
Yeah.
Like, and she's about winning. And that was the other thing that I thought was funny. It's like people were like wanted. I think there's like some problems with the story, like UFO, where it has. And I've written about this about the show. It elicits passion from its fan base because the series is so intrinsically about it. And I think people are really passionate about the story and these characters. And I think oftentimes they ascribe like their expectations of what they want into the characters. And I think that kind of ignores who they are and like why it makes it special. Like, if Reina's just like a Kumiko simp that just does whatever is like in the best interest for Kumiko, that just wouldn't be Reina, right? Like Reina is this bottom line kind of crazy, person that like really values like winning and bottom line more than anything. And that's like part of her character arc is like learning like that's not always the case. She apologized for what she did for what she said to Kumiko, which I think is important because I do think that like Kumiko had fault in that conflict because Kumiko was not being a good leader. Kumiko was like being very reserved. She was being a little selfish in terms of like she let her personal feelings on how she felt the audition went, kind of encroach on her duties as a president, and she did not have her band in check, and that's her responsibility. And it's like Reina's like, well, then do something about it, right? And again, she could be harsh, and I understand that, like, and she apologized for that, and I think that we all make mistakes in this, but I just think that like she's a very nuanced character, and I think that people don't really understand her, or maybe they wouldn't like a person like that in their life, so they're like she's the worst, when really like I think they're forgetting why Kumiko likes her. And I think that like that sometimes gets lost when we're experiencing a story that we really care about.
And pretty much all those same reasons that they don't like her are the reasons that Kumiko does.
Exactly.
It's why Reina is special in Kumiko's eyes.
She'll always go for that. And listen, we've spent 40 minutes talking about pretty much one decision in the story. That's how like important it was.
Yeah.
And it, like really, it just ties. And I'm glad that we spent so long on it, because we've really brought that moment, right? That episode, we've tied it to every impactful thematic thread in the story, because it all comes back to it. Even Mamiko and Asuka, right? Like these two people that season 2 kind of, used as this framing device for Kumiko, and like kind of like this mirroring of like these two older women in her life. Even they had like an impact on these decisions on this solely, and it's just so perfect and so tight. Even bring back Mizoda and Nozomi and everything, and it's just really good. It's just like you don't get shit like that anymore.
No,
it's air fucking tight.
They don't make them like they used to.
They don't make them like they used to. The finale was, I think, pretty standard. I think they gave us what we wanted. They got gold. I think at that point they had to win gold.
We talked about this the day before. Was the fact that like, okay, you've done the failure thing. Having them not win gold at this point, I don't think adds anything anymore.
Bring that shit home.
Yeah, like all it does is just further reinforce the points that you already made in a way that is now. So it's like the thing that was so good about Kumiko losing the Soli was that it said something new. Like we had brought these things, it brought the story full circle. But now that it's already been brought full circle that way, like them not winning gold at nationals doesn't actually further that in any way. It just is, another like rock on top of it. So like, but it's still just as emotionally unsatisfying as Kumiko losing was. So now you're doubling down on the emotional unsatisfaction. But this time for no good reason. So yeah, they definitely they had to win gold, and
they had to win gold, and they did the right thing.
And I think that scene was the best in the finale, bar none.
Which one?
The results announcement.
Oh, when she has the flashback to like every fucking heartbreaking moment that she's had.
And the soundtrack is like a medley of the year 1 free piece, and then Liz and the Bluebird, and then now the year 3's free piece. Before finally Hibike Euphonium at the end. Just the music was so good. The emotions all came through. And then my favorite line in the whole finale with Reina, "I'm so happy I could die." That just brought it all together.
That scene was really good for a couple reasons. One, that line, honestly, again,
speaking of coming full circle.
Speaking of coming full circle, really, and in reality, it's really the only way they could have ended the show.
Yeah.
When you think about it, you're just like, oh yeah, that's it. It's the way it's directed, because I think that you have like this like moment where Kumiko and Shuichi are on stage as president and vice president. Red as a drum major, she's not on stage to accept this award. So this is the first really scene that we get of them getting a result that they're not together, right? Because they're always together, they're always holding hands, they're always like you and me to the end. And this time it wasn't. And I thought the way that Ishihara and the rookie Okamaru handled it was really good. You get the shot of Kumiko's eyes crying, and it match cuts to Rena's eyes crying, and you get like this zoom out, and it's this white background, and Rena's kind of like almost like a doll, like in shock, lifeless, until she's brought back, right? The white fades, and it just shows that she's like in a crowd, and Midori hugs her, and like everyone's going crazy. And I like that scene for a couple reasons. One, it's like really impeccably animated. Two, that connects them in that moment. That when Rena's in that white background, like it's to show like in this moment, that match cut, that they're connected. Like we're not on stage together, but we're together. Like you and me, like, everything that we went through. And I just thought that was like, as well as you could have articulated that, that's direction. That's so fucking Annie.
That's what it's all about.
Like, that's how you fucking do it. Because how else are you going to convey without words that like together, it was just done so well. And really, let's like this, because it's really like the zoom out, and then she's in this crowd, and it's like, she's like lifeless, but what she's thinking and what she's feeling, as somebody literally is grabbing her and like shaking her. Like the person she's connected to is on that stage, not the people physically touching her. And I just thought that was really fucking good.
Yeah, and the fact that the scene starts with Kumiko with her eyes darting back and forth, trying to find them in the crowd and not being able to, and she specifically says like, "Where are they? Where's Reina?" And then before like Shuichi talks to her like, like how are you feeling and whatnot. But yeah. So the fact that's how the scene leads in, and then it's their cheers right when they win that draws her eye to them. It's done beautifully.
It's just so good. And as you said, like the kind of the medley, the medley to that. I mean, it was just. I mean, it was. I thought it was a really satisfying finale.
I mean, we talked about it that it certainly felt a little bit like a checklist of beats that we kind of had to hit. And I think part of that is, to me, this finale was probably the one episode of the show of the season that felt a little more on the rush side. But there it is. Yeah, no, it's just perfect. But I think that like it did everything it needed to, we got all the beats that we needed to, and we even had like some like additional little scenes that I loved getting. Like I talked about it this one in my short, but the scene with the read between Ridika and her kohai, like that little callback to Liz and the Bluebird, again connecting Liz back into it. Perfect. The episode had a number of just small touches like that really sort of tied everything together across the franchise. And that's what a finale like this should be, right? This is a celebration of everything that UFO's been and everything that these characters have been through, as this, part of their lives comes to an end in the story. Like, I think that, and even in the performance, the fact that the performance is mostly a montage of, old everything that's happened up to this point. One thing I did like about that was during the Soli performance, the fact that the Soli, like, this is all like Kumiko's thoughts, right? And so then during the Soli, she's just thinking about all the angsty moments and all the conflict and all the failures as she's listening to this Soli. It was like, yeah, it still hurts.
I love that. I mean, listen, no one does angst like UFO. No one, heartbreak's not so bad in a place like this. Like AMC theaters. It was good. It was very cathartic, and I think it was what we needed. It was really, and I had said this to you. I was like, all right, Ishihara, you just got to tap it in.
Yeah.
You just listen. You just got to be Erling Haaland in Manchester City. You don't got to do anything. You don't really got to be a football player. You just got to be a tap-in merchant. KDB will set you up, and you just got to fucking flick your foot into the net, and you got this. You did everything. Just let them win gold, and you take it home.
Pinaldo.
Shout out to that guy losing, by the way. Shout out to Ronaldo losing. Hey, Messi, you're fucking next. I hate your guts.
Shout out to our guys hitting all their pens.
Shout out to Trent Alexander-Arnold, Bukayo Saka, Martinelli. Shout out to Elisa. As for context, Jack is an Arsenal fan, and I am a Liverpool fan. And I'm
a lifelong Gooner.
Yeah, we're just being haters. Whoa. Clip it.
That one's getting clipped.
Clip it. I'm gonna tweet it. So yeah. So I was like, Ishihara, you just got to tap this in, and I think he tapped it in. I think he successfully tapped. I think that the scene we just talked about, the kind of announcement was good. I have my qualms about the performance, and I guess this is a good time to kind of get into some of the things we didn't like, because nothing's perfect, right? And I think UFO is our favorite show, both of us. Jack and I have really made this, YouTube careers off of it, and really we've made a lot of friends because of it, and we're going to Uji because we care about it so much, but nothing's perfect. And I think like one of the like kind of one of my issues with the lack of performance is that this performance was like you said, a highlight reel, a montage, which I think would have been more acceptable. I do think like it hits, right? Like you have like you're feeling all these feelings of like, oh my god, like everything we went through. That could have been the finale, and you could have given us a Kansai performance, or actually not even a Kansai performance. You could have given us the Kyoto performance, because I think that you only need one, because you want the two renditions, right? Kumiko playing with Rena, the Soli, and then Mayu playing the Soli with Rena, which we got, right? And I thought that scene was done really well with Kumiko kind of like really just taking it in stride, taking it happy, like, hey, like that was the right choice. And I think that you saw in that moment that she had no regrets, which again, and that threw me for a loop too, because I kind of wanted her to kind of like be angsty or look, but I think that was the better decision, to be like her having total peace with what happened. And I wish that it was more of a performance scene and not a highlight reel, because we only got one performance and really got like half of it. So that was like, I don't know how you felt. I was kind
No,
of
I agree,
I
and
was
which
disappointed
is
in that.
it's like it's more of a criticism of the fact that we didn't get more music than it is like the specific choice to do this in
Yeah,
this finale.
I
Like,
think it was an adequate decision for a finale. I think it was the right
yeah.
decision, but I just don't like it within the context
When
of that's the only performance scene we got.
because they did it this way in the finale, like if they had just done sort of more of like a season 2 ep 5 Kansai performance, if they had done one of those either in Kyoto or Kansai, like this would not have felt too repetitive because of the fact that you're going in this direction with the sort of like clip show. um it is something that makes sense when it's the finale of your entire franchise that has spanned
9 years.
40 episodes and a bunch of movies. um but definitely, yeah, not getting a full performance in the style of season of what we got in season 2, especially, or even Chikai for that matter. um you know I think if there's any criticism of the season, it's probably there's a few spots where we maybe could have used some more music. Sunfest would be probably the other big one that I would have preferred that we actually got to see it happen. But again, I think these are mostly just things where it's like, I have seen people be like, man, with UFO season 3 should have been too core, and
That's too
that
much.
I don't agree with. That's too much. There's not 12 episodes of content here. Like if you're going to add 12 episodes or 13 more episodes to this, you would have to be coming up with entirely new conflicts.
I think that's just the limitations of like television format, where you get like 13 weeks or 12 weeks. And I just don't think that's like, unfortunately, that leads to the best things. I think also you could have done it with 13 episodes, but have varying lengths. I just think that you're just bound by television.
Yeah.
And again, KyoAni is what, I mean, by the way, to clarify, this production was finished before it aired. Construction was finished a while ago. So this wasn't like a time crunch thing or whatever. Like, it's just the limitations of television, that you have to have 22, 23, whatever, 25-minute episodes or whatever it is.
No, because I mean, I think in an ideal world, if you had 14 or 15 episodes for this UFO season, you squeeze in Sunfest, maybe squeeze in another performance. And then I would also say, like, would have been great to have maybe a couple more epilogue scenes after the performance and after they won gold.
That was my main complaint.
Something from graduation or something like that. I certainly
there were
think
things that we could have had. I think at the start as well. I think that we could have gotten the third-year graduation. I think a more extended scene of Kumiko being chosen as president. Like there's a lot of picks that we could have had, of like a couple things that we could get an episode out of. Kind of enough of what we're talking about. But really, in the finale, I think that the slideshow, kind of little epilogue post gold scene, that was the thing that I was like not happy about that. Not happy about that, because I do think that blog needed more buildup. The entire episode felt satisfying, but kind of rushed. I think narratively they got 99% of their bases covered, kept everything really tight. But I think the finale was the weakest episode of the season, and I think it's the second weakest of the entire series. I think behind First Love Trumpet, which is very comfortably the worst episode of UFO. Also, very anime original. Yuki Hanada, 1 for 2, did not cook.
Total redemption.
It's still an incredible way to wrap up the last 9 years. I am not upset, but I think that we could have gotten a more, I wanted some graduation scenes. I wanted a Kanapi Kumiko send-off. Again, I don't know if that's in the novels. It's just something I would have wanted. And I do think that we needed post-national scene. I want to celebrate with these characters. That's the thing. Like, I want to celebrate with them. Like, we spent 9 fucking years with them. Let's party. Listen, when I watch my team win a title, Jack, do you not want to watch them pop the champagne? You know,
I mean, there's all sorts of little scene, like hypothetical scenes you could think of that, could have been really satisfying or interesting. Like, I mean, an actual scene with Yuko and Haruka afterwards, like, and their reaction with Kumiko. I mean, you had the other 2 presidents of Kitauji in the building. Certainly there could have been some moment between the old characters celebrating with Kumiko and the other, third years. Like, there's
a slideshow of Yuko and Natsuki, which, by the way, I want to say something. They're about that fucking action. They care so much. They're fucking always there, and I think they're the goats for that.
Yeah. Oh man, but the slideshow had its little bits of characterization. But certainly I think there's a little more you could do, but they were limited with the time that they had at this stage. And so it is what it is. But the very final scene of the entire series is exactly how I'd been picturing that the series would end for literal years. I don't know when the first time I said that I thought that the last scene of UFO would be Kumiko being the music advisor at Kitauji. But I know it was a long time ago.
You fucking nailed that one.
Yeah, that was I've been in Takeda and Juki Hanada's head for a long time there. And seeing it actually finally play out was a little surreal for sure. Seeing grown-up Kumiko and teacher Kumiko.
It was the right way to end it.
It was beautiful. I loved one of my favorite shots of the whole finale was the little was the worn down Tuba-kun.
Oh, bro, Tuba-kun, me after 10 gin and tonics.
Exactly.
Just like me, for real. That guy, the little Tuba-kun, that was all of us. We've been with Tuba-kun for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were there when she won it. Look at that. That's me. That's me after the bar, after I have a rough night. He's barely there, but he's there. And
that's what 9 years looks like right there, guys.
That's what 9 years looks like. That's what a lot of failure looks like.
That's what the Kumire trenches looks like.
He's hanging on by a fucking thread. Quite literally hanging on by a thread. A few threads, actually. Shout out to the Nozomi ponytail. As Kumiko.
Yeah, the metronomic ponytail back and forth.
Yep. The goat. The final is in the Bluebird callback. But I mean,
the youth player that's like low key looks a little bit like Kumiko, little floofy.
Yeah, a little floofy first year youth, right? Because I think somebody had kind of done the math on the year on like the time skip, and that year would be first year red ribbon. She's sitting next to a silver euphonium, a third year silver euphonium. She's like, it's all coming back to me. And that's pretty amazing. So great, satisfying ending. Wish we got more epilogue scenes. We got to talk about the elephant in the room.
I was literally about to say that phrase. The hairpin sized elephant in the room.
So our friend Dan made a funny joke about the way that Shuichi infiltrated the last scene. He said they really gave him a very Yuri ambiguous ending. They really G-witched him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I said it was like head bait. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like head bait, which was quite funny.
It's funny. Yeah, it was like he didn't even make an appearance, basically, as far as that went. Like, it just she just has the hairpin again. That's all we know.
It was kind of a weird. So, like, in the novel, from what I gather, from what I've asked people and what I've talked, because that we haven't, the second part of the novel is not translated yet. I'll read it. I'm excited to read it. But yeah, so like there's some sort of confession scene or something, and in the anime, he's just not around, and he's not thematically relevant to anything happening, which is why you can essentially write him out and does not change the ethos of the story.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's funny about him and the relationship that they have. I also compared it. If you have seen Rakugo, if you know, you know. I compare the hairpin to the one scene at the end of Rakugo. We can all pretend that that didn't happen.
It just
But
doesn't. The show. I mean, the staff themselves were clearly just not interested in spending their limited time exploring any of that, right? I
yeah,
mean, they spent no time on Shuichi and Kumiko as an item. But whenever Shuichi does have screen time, which isn't that often, but whenever he does, it is as it's as the vice president of the club. It's as an advisor and Kumiko's friend and voicing his opinion, on whatever current conflict is going on. And in
or
that
fighting with
capacity,
Reina in the corner
yeah,
by the
or
water
fighting with
fountain.
Reina. And in that capacity, he's good. He's a good addition. Like, especially when Shuichi and Reina are on opposite sides and Kumiko's in the middle.
Yes,
That
very
that
good.
is probably his best material in the season one, maybe even the whole show. But in that capacity, he's good. And they're just the season spent no time whatsoever. I don't think there's a single scene between the two of them that has any romantic undertones for the entire season. The only time it ever is even mentioned is other characters saying something like that to Kumiko when he's not in the room and her reacting with her usual deadpan.
It was NIMBY.
I have no interest in that. Yeah.
Chico.
That's going back to that's like season 1, basically, where that's where their relationship was for the bulk of it. And so that's why and in fact, I'm pretty sure I do believe you're right that I think I have seen that there's some scene between them in the novels that's much more explicit about the direction that
I
their
believe it's
relationship
after they
goes.
win gold.
Yeah, and it might
that.
even be that he gives her the hairpin or something like that
Yeah,
back.
he gives
But
it back. Yeah,
yeah,
because she gives it back to him during Chikai and says, "Hey,
yeah.
I'm not interested in this until, at the
What
very least, until we finish
and
band."
it's very interesting to me then that they could have easily done that during the montage of the credits. Just stick
They didn't.
an
He's just
illustration.
not there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they didn't. They
and it also ends. The illustrations end on 2 Kumire illustrations.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
running, holding hands.
And I mean, listen, I'm
so
not delusional. I want to be clear that I'm not delusional. I think we both are fully aware of what the very clear implication was.
I didn't see shit. I just saw her with a fucking hairpin. I don't know what that means. She just
it's just that, I mean,
she has a paper clip on her notebook. What does that mean? I don't
know. It's just interesting how little the actual show itself seemed at dealing with that.
I envisioned Shu unemployed. She didn't say it. She's like, Midori and Hazuki got work and Rena's in America. She didn't mention this dude.
He didn't even mention Shu.
Yeah, that's why I just think it's funny. It's just like,
it is.
I think that's the only genuinely not good writing, because it's not. I think his content with her is not thematically relevant to UFO. And I'm not even here to say if you like that ship, you're a bad person or anything. Yeah. I may think that in private. I'm not saying that on the podcast right now. But I'm just talking about narratively, I don't really see the thematic relevance, because again, Kumiko was never going to be canon. I was not under any sort of delusion. But that relationship had a lot of meaning, right? Again, we've talked about how it ties into Liz and the Bluebird, how it ties into both of their character arcs very, very, very personally, right? Of this idea of improvement, of parting, of their futures and stuff like that. They're attached by the hip and all this stuff. And he is not relevant. Their relationship is not relevant to anything the story's trying to say, which is, like I said earlier, why you can kind of remove him from the story for large parts of it and it not really have any bearing on its narrative, because he's not important to what the show is trying to say, right? As you cannot do that with Rena. If you remove Reina, the show's gone. She's half the fucking show.
You'd have to play it back, but if you watch the performance scene when we're getting that montage of Kumiko's thoughts and her thinking about everything they've been through,
he's not in it.
I'm pretty sure he does not appear one time.
You know when he's in it?
And
when they're about
not even when they're doing the Chikai montage. Yes. He does and he was a very big part of that movie. None of those scenes are even in the montage. And you're right. The one time he does appear is not during the performance, but during the results scene. And there's a clip, cuts of just like all the different characters basically.
Yes.
And so he gets in there, but like as far as like the clip show montage during the performance, it's going through all the big things that have happened and I just thought that was telling too. It's just interesting. I think like even if you just look at Shuichi and Kumiko as a ship, with Kumire taken out of the equation completely, if you just look at the Kumiko and Shuichi in a vacuum, it's not a very interesting ship. I don't know. The show just didn't explore it in an interesting way. Chikai's the only one that even really made like of all the entries of the franchise, Chikai's really the only thing that even made an attempt to.
And Ishihara even said, I thought they were fun in these novels. And that's why he, and it's the same director, right? Ishihara is the one directing this season as well. So even its biggest ally lost interest. He's the Andy and Woody meme. I don't want to play with you anymore.
Yeah.
He's really done that twice. He didn't want to play with Kumire anymore, and then he didn't want to play with Shu anymore. So kind of interesting. Obviously, like part of the ending doesn't really affect the way that I view the story as a whole. I kind of forgot about it, to be honest with you, already until we brought this podcast up. I only remember it when I see fan art of the fucking hairpin, because like really that's all I see. The fucking hairpin fan art. That's all. That's all I really see. So just kind of interesting. Just the way that like I think where he fits in the narrative, and I think that they just, and I'm glad. Like I'm genuinely glad that they spent the time with Kumire more. I find that to be a more compelling relationship for the show. I think that them spending more time developing any kind of romantic implication between them, I think it's difficult because again, the limited runtime, I think that time was better served progressing the plot rather than those other moments. And I think that again, there's a lot of characters in the show. We only got that one scene with Asuka and Kaori, like Haruka spoke once, like there's just like a lot of old. I mean, Kanopi, Mire didn't really do anything the whole season.
Season, man. Yeah, poor Mire. She really, she really got the chef. She had like one speaking line in the finale, and I was like,
and it was great. Man. That was the most Ishihara ass. That was
it
was very. That was.
I will say, like, in general, some of the year 2 characters really got the shaft. I don't mean in season 3. I mean across the franchise. Because of the fact that like Chikai was supposed to be their movie, like that was their time to shine, and season 3 was always going to be about more of like these other conflicts going on that they were more on the periphery of. So like the year 2 novels, that's where Mirei and Satsuki and all these characters more so had their moment, and because of Chikai being so limited in its runtime, we got a little bit of it with Mirei in that movie with Sunfest and stuff, but not a ton. And then kind of really the only one that got any major characterization in this second season, other than Kanade, obviously, was Motomu. And even that was kind of tying up a loose end from the year 2 story. So definitely rip to those girls.
rip to those girls. Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like, really, again, that's a victim of, and I don't know how much they're in the novel. Again, we're gonna read it. I'm gonna read it at least, so I'm excited. Maybe we'll do something kind of comparing the 2 adaptations. But again, and again, they added an anime original episode really to the run, and we already spent 45 minutes talking about why that episode is the most important in UFO. So I don't really think that I don't really want them to have taken that out. So I'm glad we got. And so I'm just really interested in I'm just really happy. I love the season. I think it's great. Those are my very minor grievances with the end. I think that it's airtight. I think it's really special and wonderful. And I'm trying to just think if we like kind of missed anything. I mean, since our last podcast, I mean, the only episode we haven't super in depth talked about was the episode in the conversation with Asuka, which I thought was really exceptional, and I think that that was kind of a bridge. That was really kind of the turning point to positivity after really it had hit like a super bad breaking point. I think Kumire and Kumiko had lost kind of control of everything, and that was kind of I did talk about that a little bit, how Asuka kind of called her out, called her selfish, and then she really kind of pulled through and they made it through Kansai. But yeah, man, it was just Really
Yeah,
special from start to finish.
yeah.
Do you think? Do you have something to say before we move on, or?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think that I didn't know that I didn't know if UFO still had this in it, especially with the change in staff. And we did talk about this a little bit on the pod, the previous one, but it's even more the case now after we've gotten some of the amazing episodes down the stretch that we had. But yeah, without Naoko Yamada there, without Haruka Fujita there, I was definitely a bit worried, and especially after Chikai did not hit the same heights as the TV series did, for sure for me. We talked about I was worried about this, but they nailed it. And for whatever qualms I do, little nitpicks and grievances like we talked about with season 3, I don't have any qualms whatsoever about what it had to say. And
Fantastic.
how and it was like you said, it was thematically airtight. And ultimately, I think it puts a bow on UFO that I can't imagine UFO without season 3 anymore. And I think going into it, that's something that, like, after season 1 and season 2, when we got more UFO, like, I wasn't sure if we needed it, right? Because I think season 2 does end in such a satisfying way. But now, having completed everything, I can't imagine it without this full picture. Not just without Liz, but without everything. Now season 3, you add it all up, and it's beautiful.
It's the best show ever made. I think. I
Yeah.
I don't think.
It's gonna be a while probably before I find something I like more than this.
Personally, the anime for the rest of the year is Who's Coming in Second Place.
Oh yeah, anime of the year. Yeah, it's
Monogatari may have something to say. I doubt that it will. A strong doubt that, and
I,
I love Monogatari. I know that you are about to finish
mhm.
the original batch of content, and before you get
Catching
into
up finally.
off
Yeah.
season. By the way, I just saw the episode before we did this podcast. My God, are we back? Anime is so saved between UFO, Monogatari, Spice and Wolf, Code Geass, which has been fucking gas. Really party like it's 2012, but yeah, it's really about what's coming in second place.
Yeah, it was always going to be kind of an unfair competition for anything else that aired this year for me. I mean, like, this is the finale to my favorite show ever. Everything else is at such a disadvantage that
I mean, the production's so good. I mean,
we haven't even really talked about that. But my God, the animation and direction in this season is
I
so
mean,
strong, and I genuinely think that mountain scene is maybe the best animated scene that KyoAni's ever had.
I mean, look at just the nuances in the face,
The
the
facial expressions are
hair,
so incredible. Yeah, yeah.
the voice acting, the compositing. It is just
The
the the
detail,
the
the
detail. I talked about.
I love the giant tears.
I talked about kind of like how profoundly ugly the cries are, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they've
yeah.
really mastered like this like really aggressive wailing and these faces. It was just such an airtight production. I think everything UFO means a lot to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, but kind of, and I said this at the time, like, the community that it's built, I think is like such a wonderful legacy for UFO to have. And I think if like you asked Takeda and the staff, like, like if they understood the community that the show has fostered, I think that that's like the most important thing that this story could have given people. And I think that that's like kind of why like we experience art together and we kind of have these moments where we can share and kind of feel and bond
Mhm.
over these things, because it's like that's what it's all fucking about. We're all moved by this thing that we care so deeply about,
Yeah.
right? And I think that that's like such a wonderful legacy for UFO to leave. I think it's like the really the only, you know what I mean? Like it's that's heritage, right? Like we talk
Yeah.
a lot about Kitauji
Football
heritage,
heritage.
football heritage. I tweeted, I go, thank you all for sharing UFO with me the last decade. It's meant the
Yeah.
world to me. We build community over a shared love, and that feels like the legacy UFO was supposed to leave. I don't,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that, like, I think last when the finale aired, like, after I think the initial wave of, just payoff and everything had kind of run its course, I just felt so, like, a little melancholy about the fact that, like, just thinking about how long of a time 9 years has been, and all of the friends I've made because of our shared love of UFO, the people I've traveled the world with, right? I mean, gone all over the place to see and to share this together, and none of that would have happened if it wasn't for this franchise. So it goes so much more than just my love of the content specifically, but just thinking about everything in my life that's happened, all the wonderful people I've met because of it. It's special. That doesn't just happen.
It's a story that's about so many things, and I think it just boils down to like doing your best, whether it's finding something you love and finding identity in
Yeah.
that passion. It's about learning how to fail. It's about learning to respect others and yourself. It's about parting. It's about falling in love. It's about so many things. And I think like the ways that people kind of extract meaning out of UFO, I think is really special. One of the things I said, and again, like this is not to like discourse or anything, but like I tweeted, I'm like, I don't really care if Kumiko and Rena end up together or if like Shuichi is like a more canon ending. They can never take away what they made us feel. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
that's like what it's supposed to do. Like they can't take this is not SpongeBob where like Plankton can or Mr. Krabs can rewind and you put the memories of the TV back in the
Yeah.
TV. They
Yeah.
can't do that. You know what I mean? Like they can't take away like it's like what Kanapi said. You forced me to experience that. You know what I mean? You can't take that back. You can't take back
Yeah.
that or other things. And I think that matters. I think that everything that it's had to say is absolutely profoundly beautiful. I think it's lessons that I take with me. I think Liz and the Bluebird is the most perfect film I've ever seen. I think it's this. I think it's perfect. I think it's like literally I'd put
Hmm.
it up with any film, and I think even film people would say like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that shit rips.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's about these horrors of falling in love and overcoming and parting and this unrelenting hope that it shows us. And I think UFO kind of borrows a lot of that, and it's just special, man. It's truly one of one. I think it's one of the best directed series I've ever seen. I think that for me, I think it's KyoAni's most impressive production,
Hmm.
from top to bottom. Because I think Nichijo's probably its best animated still. Gonna be hard to ever,
As far as like
yeah,
dynamic animation, like
for
action
sure.
animation goes, yeah, for sure.
And again, it's a series that lends itself more to that. But I just think like
Yeah.
production, top to bottom, I think including direction, animation, everything. I think it's UFO. I think it looks better than Violet Evergarden. I think it looks better than Hyoka. Hyoka was always kind of the standard for me of a KyoAni production. I'm like, it's going to be hard to ever top Hyoka because of how it moved in like these very dense
Yeah.
environments. The backgrounds in Hyoka, obviously, like a Takemoto Helms project is going to be hard to beat ever. But I think that I put season 3 of UFO up with that. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah. I mean, people were posting like side by side comparisons of season 1, episode 8 with season 3, episode 12, the two mountain scenes, right? Because they were mirroring each other. But seeing those two side by side, I mean, and I remember when season 1 aired, we all thought like, oh, this is the most beautiful thing, like beautiful
it doesn't get
scene
much
I've ever
better
seen
than
in my
this.
life. And then now you watch it next to season 3, and just like you can see how far they've developed even within UFO, over the course of those 9 years, and especially everything that everyone on staff at KyoAni has been through in that time with the arson in 2019, for them to be able to produce something like UFO season 3 is an unbelievably beautiful story to come out of
And
that.
and kind of like a really like moving little Easter egg was during the announcement scene. They drew. I'm reading a tweet by I can't read this poor man's name. Helmi Aziz.
Hmm.
He said they drew the staff who passed from the arson, Kigami, Ikeda, Nishia, and many others in the audience seats cheering on the other Kitauji members And if you want to go search this and look through the thread, and you could see like the different kind of members of the staff that have passed that are there, and what is like really beautiful and moving, and I think really special that it's UFO is not UFO without them, but I think the staff and I think Ishihara and everybody did a pretty special job of we talked a lot about kind of the legacy that UFO has and that Kitauji has, but I think this speaks a lot to the legacy that KyoAni has.
Yeah.
This legacy of excellence and love, and one of
one. And the fact that it was UFO too. I mean, Uji is their home, right?
Yes.
And so for them to be able to so lovingly portray this place that they loved so much, and to see the story through, it's beautiful. It's what drew them to adapting Sound Euphonium in the first place. This wasn't, this was not one of the novels that they published under their own publishing label. But the fact that it was set in Uji is what part of what drew them to it. And so, yeah, it's beautiful.
Pretty spectacular. One of the last things I'll say, and then I want to get into some character stuff before we get out of here, is how I think they did a great job with setting. I think in this season, I think A, by keeping it fresh, and B, leveraging setting that is important, whether it be the scene in episode 2 on the bench where Kumiko and Rena pick the piece, right, and how impactful the bench is, to using a different bridge. Kumiko runs on a different bridge. And then when they use the Uji bridge in the scene after the Mizore performance, the bridge where Kumiko and Rena break up, like those are all real places in Uji that are all within the scope of like where they all always hang out. Because Uji is not very big, and if you ever visit, you'll see like how small it is. And I think that the way that they included new places while using the old ones, I think is something that I think UFO utilizes setting, I mean, pretty impeccably. I think a lot of other anime don't do it like them. Even within the school, obviously, like there's like very sacred places, like Kumiko's practice place. The fountain where the sink where Kumiko and Rena often go. Like I think we all know the school pretty well. The little bridge, the little pedestrian bridge where Rena practices, that's her practice spot. Like everything that we know.
Some of these locations take on their own character.
Yes.
Throughout the series. And they
Mayu had her own practice spot in the hallway.
Yeah. The classroom. Yep. I mean, Kumiko's, but like, they not only do they give us that sense of space, but the staff then also uses these locations to say something about what's happening, and about the conflicts, whether it was how Mayu is invading Kumiko's practice space, or, how they've used the mountain, how they've used the Uji bridge, or all these different
the crosswalk, where in episode, I believe it's 4 or 5, when Kumiko and Rena have that moment where Rena kind of brushes her hair back with the cars, and that whole kind of beautiful, like, that's something that you would say, right?
Yeah.
To then
you're not like other girls.
You're not like other girls. To then that episode of post Mizore performance where they have like, this really big, like, we'll always be together moment. To put it there is like special, because it's also a place where they part. That's where they go their own ways, where Kumiko goes one way and Rena goes the other. Like, it's just so fucking tight and brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's like all these things come together, that all these decisions are they're so thought out, they're so deliberate, and that's what makes UFO.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. Let's talk characters before we get out of here. I've thought about ranking characters. Let me tell you something, man. Kanopi's top 5.
Okay, I was gonna say, how deep do you want this ranking to go? Are we going top 5?
Can you do 10? Is asking you to do 10 tough?
It might be tough.
Do 5? Do you want to do 7?
Let's start with 5.
Top 8.
Can we do top 8?
Want to do top 8? Shout out.
We can do top 8. Yeah, we'll do.
Shout out to the fucking the GOAT games for Smash Bros. Melee.
Yeah,
that's the FGC. We're gonna go backwards because it's easier for us.
Oh yeah,
it's not as good for dramatic effect. But I didn't ask Jack to do this ahead of time. And it's funny because I've wanted to do this since we planned this pod. I didn't tell him. That's on me. That's bad planning by me. But we're doing this. What I should have done is I should have asked you. I should have had a graphic. I didn't do that. It is what it is.
Well, see, going backwards is tough because my top like 4 are the ones that are most solidified. But you start with your bottom while I quickly
No, I'll send you. We can go from the top to the bottom.
No, it's fine. We can start at the bottom. I'll think about this quickly.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So
Just you go first.
Okay, so I think I think number 8. I think it's kind of like I'm gonna go Haruka, and I kind of really like how she. I think the way that I think Kumiko's presidency is more of reflection on her than Yuko, and I kind of wish that we got a little more of Haruka this season because I think that Haruka could have related to Kumiko more than Yuko. I think Yuko was more of a natural leader. I think Haruka is kind of like struggles and has like this. Um, she's like she's really passive and really has to like kind of overcome that nature to be a leader. And I think Haruka kind of gets there, which like Kumiko does. I think Kumiko does so much better. Shout out to my goat. And I think Kumiko often thinks back to Haruka throughout kind of the story to like, oh, you only like me. You only say I'm good because I'm nice. And, she really, relied on Asuka a lot, and Kumiko kind of had to rely on her cabinet, as I call them. So I love Haruka's the goat. I love her.
I think Haruka might be my first miss the cut here. But I do love her for all the same reasons. She would be in the top 10. If we did a 10, she'd be in there for me. And certainly her, the sequence at the train station in season 2 is so peak. I think, all right, for my 8th spot, I will go with Taki. And Taki's characterization in season 3 was actually really one of its stronger elements. I thought every time he showed up, like he, especially his relationship with Kumiko, I think that was something that we hadn't really gotten too much of. I think before probably they had that moment in season 1, episode 12, where Kumiko's like, he helps her sort of realize like, yeah, I love the euphonium, and that's enough. And I loved that conclusion to that episode. But yeah, I think Taki, particularly like how season 3 has sort of like shown his own weaknesses, as opposed to just sort of like the god of music. Like I think that it's important as Kumiko and these other characters move into adulthood themselves. Part of becoming an adult is realizing that adults are just as flawed and just as immature and just as have as much to learn as you do when you're still in high school.
That scene with the little baby coffee, with the little coffee.
Yeah. And I think, kids have this like idolized view of people in their adulthood. And like I said, part of becoming an adult is having that viewpoint shattered. And I think that they did some really interesting things with Taki this season to sort of bring that tie into Kumiko's future arc.
He would have been my 7th for everything that you said. And I think the one thing I kind of wish that the narrative did that they didn't was I wish they had explored some of Rena's admiration for Taki a little better. I think that's the one thing in the story that's really underdeveloped that I think needed to be kind of explored, and it didn't. And I think that does a disservice to Rena a bit. I guess this is more of a Rena thing than a Taki thing, because Taki is really just a poor innocent bystander in this psycho's affection. But I certainly think that I think he's the perfect advisor, like to kind of really bring this narrative together. When I think of like my favorite teachers in anime, I mean, I think of him and Kifri from Witch Hat Atelier.
Yeah.
My 2 goats, which by the way, Kifri, they just have the anime announcement and the trailer. I really want Sakurai to
he'd be so perfect. Yeah, we've talked about this. Like I literally and Witch Hat Atelier is literally my favorite manga. And whenever I read it, I hear Takahiro Sakurai's voice in my head when reading Kifri's lines, even though Kifri's lines are in English, but whatever.
Kifri's go. Read Witch Hat Atelier if you're a UFO fan. I guarantee you'll like it. It is just really kind of captures that ethos. But peak. I think Taki's there too, and I was worried early on that he wouldn't be a player in this season like he was in year 1, because he really wasn't in year 2, and I'm glad he was, because I think that like he had his own growth that he had to go through, as kind of like they have that line that Hashimoto's like, do you actually believe that music is played? like Astaki looks at things a lot like Rena, very bottom line. And even when he's explaining his decisions to Kumiko, you can kind of see like he even talks about the way like he's not good with people and he just like views things like musically. And I do think he's a very kind man, and I think you kind of see that from Kumiko's POV where this person genuinely has their best interest in mind, and he wants to win and he wants to do what's right by his students. And that's really when he's one of the little montages post celebration, he's like crying, like he's actively like wiping
Yeah.
tears. And to see that man emote that way
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
he's been, I can't believe we didn't get more of that. So I love Taki. He's the GOAT. Yeah, man, that's my 7.
Okay. So my 7, and this will definitely be low for some people, but I do want to preface this by saying my top 4 is pretty for sure, but 5 through 8 here, I'm pretty much splitting hairs. But I will say Asuka in 7th.
Didn't make my cut.
Yeah, I didn't think. I thought that Asuka was probably going to be maybe the only difference between you and I, as far as like the actual people who make it, and then the order will be different. But yeah, I'll put Asuka in here. she's horrible. She's so mean, but I love her.
She's so mean. But I think that Kumiko needs that meanness in her life, because I think other than Rena, everyone really doesn't do that to her.
Yeah, no, she's a ton of fun as a character. And then in season 2, yeah, like I know, some people have problems with how mean she is, but I don't know. I think it works. And it drags. What it does is it drags the passivity out of Kumiko. Basically, it's like it puts Kumiko in this position where she has to come out of her shell. And Asuka frequently makes Kumiko very uncomfortable in ways that force her to drive herself forward. And so from that point of view, Asuka is a great character. Obviously, like, she's forefront in that sort of lineage throughout the show of UFO itself, and the way that Kumiko thinks to her throughout season 3, like not even talking about like when she actually goes to meet her, but the way like the impact that Asuka had on Kumiko is so clear.
Passing down the piece, Sound Euphonium,
right.
Kukanade, and Mayu.
Yeah.
I think kind of carries that lineage that she gave, that she even said, pass this piece to others. And I think that is really, I think, important for, again, this idea of heritage within this program, right? Like that they to loop back in the bear. I think what's really cool about the bear is that they're building to something that I think they realize is bigger than them. Like you have this moment where Lisa's like, like, hey, like we like do shit now. She's talking to Cousin, right? And like, like we're like actually like professionals now. And I think that like, even someone like her who's like telling people not to get in her shit and it's like, I know more than you and like just leave me alone. Like I just, I think when you realize that something is bigger than you, it matters, right? And you start working for this collective. And I think that is like why lineage is important in Kitauji and UFO, because I think it's like this group working for the betterment of the band, of winning, of each other. And I think that like kind of passing something down like that, like Asuka's ground zero of that, to tie in Osama bin Laden. From one silver youth to another.
Which Kumiko, that's another interesting like framing of Asuka in season 3 is the fact that like, Kumiko sees Asuka as this person who was special and can reach those heights. And so then the fact that she thinks of Asuka when she first meets and first hears Mayu further just drives home the threat that Mayu is to Kumiko's place.
How did you feel about her ep? Because like, I think that it delivered. I think that I cannot believe how married her and Cowdy are. That was fucking crazy.
Yeah, that was wild.
Holy shit, Ishihara.
That was as close to canon as I think any of these ships have gotten.
Holy, oh yeah, we just lived together in the small
Yeah.
space to save a little cash. I'm like, oh man, that's what they're telling you. Is that what you tell your parents?
Yeah.
So just fucking great, and she, I think, delivered. And I actually don't even think that she was fan service. I think like what Kumiko heard had to come from her, and I liked how Cody's like, you reached her. You know what I mean? Like that. Because Asuka won't even give her the win at the end. Like, you were wrong in everything you said, but you whined and kicked and screamed that I just had to like go with it. And Cody's and then she's like, I'm going to shower. Bye. Which, by the way, one of the details I loved in that episode is because Kumiko's kind of like, Asuka's like, oh, you haven't changed, right? Kind of acting high and mighty. The cookies that she puts out are the same kinds of cookies that she had in her house in season 2. Kind of like showing like, like, yours, because she had like a bowl of the cookies, and some of them was the infamous Oreo scene where she's like, but and no, are those kind of like chocolate checkered cookies?
Yeah, right.
That she's like, you haven't changed so much either. There's a part of you in there as we all change. So Asuka's great. Also, they gave her biceps. I thought that was cool.
Man, we got some Code Geass direction angles.
Oh my god, what was that? That was the horniest I've ever seen you. I was like, what on earth is going on here?
Yeah, that was wild.
Who directed that episode?
I don't know.
Somebody has some questions. Hold on, I'm gonna check right. Who the fuck did that? Because I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
I was like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, what on earth? That was Ota.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the
Minoru Ota and Noriyuki Kitanohara. Ota on storyboards as well.
Yeah.
So it was a collab. And again, we got the bridge in that.
I think Ota might have had an episode earlier in the season, but I'm pretty sure that UFO was the like storyboarding debut. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so Asuka was your 7. My 6 is Mizore, and
mine too. There we go.
I think Liz does a lot for her.
Yeah. She would not be in my top 8 if it wasn't for Liz.
I think Liz really does a lot of work for her. But I think now that it's all said and done, I think Liz is still my favorite UFO thing. I think Liz is. Yeah,
I mean, it's just the GOAT movie.
It's just the GOAT movie. I think that Mizore is. I think the way that Yamada kind of articulates the way that this girl is tormented by love and how she's agonized by her excellence is one of the most unique ways that I've ever seen that conveyed. I think that this quiet girl is, to borrow the title of another movie, she truly has a silent voice as she's screaming very loudly in every cut that she has, the way that she tugs at her hair, how anxious she is, how she's being consumed and swallowed by this fear of parting, of being left behind. And I think that she's such a realized person in kind of how she overcomes it. I think she's a really strong girl. I think that she's been through a lot, and the fact that she's able to kind of in season 3 get on that stage, perform, and shine so brightly.
It was wonderful for her to have the little epilogue. Yeah.
Kumiko feels dim in her light is, I think, pretty special and spectacular. And I think she's one of the best characters in a show filled with excellent characters.
Yeah.
I'm very close to putting her higher. But I can't. I want to give an honorable mention to Nozomi because I think Nozomi is pretty fucking excellent as well. I think my number 8 spot was between Nozomi and Haruka. I went with Haruka barely. But Nozomi, shout out to Taka.
Yeah, Nozomi would have.
Taka, if you listen, maybe you won't, but if you listen, I just want to know your GOAT was like hard to cut. But Izura is just, I mean, you can't top the GOAT.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The pain that she feels in Liz is just so visceral. A lot of this goes towards just how incredible of a director that Yamada is, but it's yeah, you can't come away from that movie and just not feel for this girl, you know. And I think it's something that these are feelings that are pretty universal too, for so many of us. But yeah, and like you said, the fact that in season 3 she gets that, we sort of see the realization of, you know, her promise from Liz and what she's capable of. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful bow on her arc.
I love that we got that, and I love that
Yeah,
they're still.
and I honestly was not expecting that. I didn't expect Nozomi and Mizore to come back in a way that was thematically relevant. Like if if anything, I was more expecting just like
Fan
cameos,
service.
maybe.
Yeah, like
Yeah, right. Just like, oh, they show up at the competition, you know, like they do at the end. But we got that, and that's great. But we also got more than that.
I think it also kind of shows that like despite them kind of taking separate paths, they're still close, and there's still a
Yeah,
lot of love and admiration, which I think
but
is like kind
it's
of
important for Kumire to witness that
yes,
too.
which is why like I think that Kumire, that scene of Kumiko being like, "We'll always be together. You're my special person,"
Yeah,
is important coming off of the heels of them, right? Because like
right.
they are the extreme of like this is how bad it could get, and they're like, they're kind of, it's a reassurance of like we will be together forever.
Yep, exactly.
Um, okay, so that was our 6.
Yep, Mizore was 6 for both. So what's your number 5 now?
Natsuki, and I think yours is yours Natsuki too. I was gonna say yours could be Natsuki or Yuko. That's 5.
My 5 is Yuko. Yeah.
Yeah, we swapped.
So
We
we
swapped
got
places.
Natsuko in here. Yeah.
We got Natsuko. So I think
Wait,
our
is your wait? Okay, wait. So
yeah,
your
because that's what I
5,
was gonna say.
yeah, is your 4 Yuko?
My 3 is Yuko.
Okay, your 3 is Yuko. Okay, so Yuko's coming
Is
up
is Yuko your 4?
because my 4 is Natsuki. So I've got Natsuko
Okay, you
5
got
and 4.
Natsuko 4, 5. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, Natsuki is pretty spectacular, and I think
Homie Hall of Fame, man. She's
Homie
just
Hall of Fame.
she has a wing in the Homie Hall of Fame.
I want to shout out a very funny tweet by the former anime YouTuber Caffeinated Telescope, our friend Ellie, when Natsuki and Yuko were late to the performance. Well, I put it up on screen. Well, we wouldn't have been here on time if my B-word wife didn't need her little treat. Because Yuko,
their dynamic is just so elite, man.
it's so
just
perfect. look at this Natsuki being like, God damn it, Yuko, we were late.
Also, shout out to the drip that Natsuki was bringing in season 3, because A, we had this right here, and then B, we also had Natsuki in the Bluebird suit from the earlier episode,
and Yuko with the Bluebird hairpin.
Yeah,
as well. So they really brought back. They really man, it was, we were Liz the fuck out.
Yeah,
in that episode, but yeah, man, Natsuki I think is just really like, I think an exceptional person. I think the fact that Kanopi in that one episode, and when Natsuki and Yuko go back and they hand out their treats and everything, Kanopi's like, well, you know what? Our youth section is fucking great, and even the first years are better than your bum ass. And Natsuki says so genuinely, that makes me happy that they're better. Because she's the GOAT. Because she is so egoless. She's so fantastic in Chikai. She's fantastic.
And to see her grow into that after the sort of shell that she was in at the start of season 1.
She was falling asleep at the window because she didn't give a fuck.
She just did not give a shit about it, and no, it was beautiful. Yeah,
she has that dog in her
too. She did, yeah. Oh, and I almost forget about the scene we got earlier in season 3 where Natsuki and Yuko come back to the school.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
when Kanopi's like, the first years are better than you. That was like,
but with the with the candy, yeah, the candy. They're giving out candy, and Kanade doesn't want any. And then later,
I'm on a diet.
Later they see Kanade walking by outside the school. I'm talking about that. Yeah, that was beautiful.
And I just think that she's just like really, I think she's a really caring person that I think you should be really proud of. And I think that like the narrative like constantly shows that in the end of season 1. Natsuki comes to give Kumiko a fist bump before the performance, and then like she didn't make the cut, and even Ren is like, Nakagawa senpai is such a cool person, and Kumiko's like, and then in season 2, like she's a person that Asuka trusts, and you see like her pure sheet music with notes that Asuka wrote, do this, do this, do this. Like you could tell like, Asuka's like, hey, if I'm not here, you got to hold down the fort. And, she's doing everything that she can to be there for the team. Again, being egoless about it. And then in Shikai, just the kind of vice president she is, the way that Kanapi is just straight up mean to her. And she's like, and Kumiko's like, Natsuki Senpai's a good person. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because she really is.
When Kanade's going to throw the audition and then Natsuki marches in there, like, you play that the way you
play that the way I know you. Yeah. And I love how Kumiko is like, when Mayu goes in, right, for the first audition, she has this flashback to that moment. And she's like, do I have that in me?
Yeah.
And that's to kind of show like the kind of people that she's been around, like that Natsuki, has that like confidence and that leadership and that heart to do that. And that Taki looks at his vice president and is like, yeah, we'll make this work, because he knows like she has that equity with him and with the clubmates. And I think that she's really not just like a funny character and like someone that is likable, but someone who is like genuinely important, when Kumiko kind of has like this very selfless kind of leadership style. I think that like you look at all the people that came before her, and again, this idea of legacy and lineage and all the people that shaped her, from Haruka and all these people, Natsuki is absolutely important to that. And I think that I mean, that's why Yuko and Natsuki, out of all of the seniors, are the ones most present in this season, because they have like the deepest connection.
3 different appearances.
Yeah, to both Kumiko and Reina, like Yuko to both. And like, we'll get into I mean, I want you to say what you think about Natsuki before we get into your Yuko pick, but like she's, I think, critical to UFO.
No, she is. I mean, I think that what we were just talking about with Shikai, like that conflict between Kanade, Natsuki, and Kumiko is comfortably the best part of that movie. And just throughout, like, I loved the friend she is to Mizore, to like so even good. In Liz, like it's so sweet. Even like really like her and Nozomi are so tight. And Yuko and Mizore are more tight. But even like Natsuki reaches out to Mizore too. And like the basketball hooper scene. It's just, everybody needs a Natsuki in their life. That's the thing I love about her, is like she's just like genuinely a character I would want to know.
Want to hang out with her. She's
exactly. You get a beer with Natsuki now.
she's the fucking goat.
Yeah, no, she is. And then the flip. Did you have anything else to say about Natsuki?
Yeah, and Liz, like, I love how she is. Like Yuko is very quick to like be very like defensive for Mizure. And I like how Natsuki is like, hey, like, chill. Like, they gotta like. I think that she is like this really like calming figure for that little quartet, because she has to be, right. Like, she's really the great. She's the point guard. You know what I mean? She really balances the vibe, and I think that she's just somebody that's really. I just wanted to include that scene of Liz, because I think that's like, you brought up Liz, and I was like, oh yeah, she's in that movie too. She's like
great
really
there.
the goat there. But your number 5 pick.
Yes. So then the flip side of that is, of course, Yuko. And after
your number 6 pick, right? Yes.
This would be 5. We're on 5. Yeah. This is 5. Mizure was both.
Yes, because your 4 is gotcha.
My 4 is going to be Natsuki. Yeah. So but with Yuko, if you would have told me that I would have Yuko in my top 5 UFO characters after season 1, especially, I would have absolutely called you crazy. She would have been down there with Midori in the bottom.
That's someone who's not on my list.
Yeah. But no, Yuko, what a turnaround! I mean, really incredible. Just as president, like, I love her so much. I think one of my low key favorite moments in UFO that just lasts a few seconds is in Shikai, when Yuko, after they've lost, is just sobbing, and having to be consoled. After herself putting on, like, giving her own speech and this and that, like a sort of similar to like a Kumiko moment, right? Like she did after she lost the Soli. But yeah, no, just the way that like you know how much this girl cared. There she is. Yeah. And she didn't let the band see that.
She did.
It's literally
She's the
Kumire.
fucking goat.
It's literally the Kumire, basically, where it's like,
she breaks down. Like you see her like walking and stumble into the wall sobbing because she feels like she let them
down. She feels like she let the whole group down.
She's Erwin Smith.
Yeah. Oh my God, no, and I know that you absolutely adore her. I thought that she was probably your favorite non-Kumire character.
Yeah, she's my third. She's number 3 for me.
Yeah, no, she herself became, she's a great leader. And of course, I'm also influenced by just how elite the Natsuki and Yuko dynamic is. They're just amazing whenever they get on screen together.
Somebody tells you that's the best ship in the show. I'm not going to sit here and say I may disagree, but I can't sit here and say they're wrong.
I think it's the most fun ship in the show.
It's so good. They're so fucking married.
They're so married, and they what they do is they steal every scene they're in together. They're scene stealers.
They're just so good. I love that scene that you talk about where she breaks down, because it really goes from that, like this moment of like this montage of like, wow, they like, we talk about like UFOs about failure, like that is her presidency is like that failure after what they've been through. And then for her to have that breakdown, and she walks outside and she goes, what is there to be depressed about? For the members, teachers, parents who supported us through this journey, we have to return with dignity in class. And like she goes up to give that speech with dignity and class after a failure and breaking down. And that's like, I've said, I think she's the most natural leader out of the 3. I think that she, I love her obsessed with, being Asuka as a drum major. And there's that cut in Chikai, which I think is like low-key, like my favorite little moment, when she throws the baton up and then it hard cuts to like it bouncing on her head and she goes, bah!
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then in at Sunfest, she nails it, and she has like this fucking big ass grin on her face. But most hard on her sleeve character, I think, even how she was with Cowdy, I think, like, talk about Homie Hall of Fame, like she's like, I'll fucking die for Cowdy.
Yeah.
And I love how like she's like the super, like she could be very serious and very goofy. And then I love that scene in Chikai where like Cowdy shows up and she's like, Cowdy senpai. She like goes crazy. And Yume, the first year trumpet player at the time, is like, adjust her glasses, Bucho? Like, dog? You know what I mean? Deep cut, by the way, knowing who Yume is. That's how real fans know. That's how you know if you're real Euphonium, you're just naming background characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yume's good. So she's great, hard on her sleeve. I love how she cares for Nozomi, for Mizore, excuse me. And Cowdy, and how she puts that all like her personal feelings aside for Reina, and the way that she comes back in this. I don't know. She's just great, and I think I personally relate to her a lot. I don't normally like see a lot of myself in characters, but I think she's somebody that I for sure see a lot of myself. I for sure I can get a little too overzealous, just like her. I care a lot, just like her. Wear my heart on my sleeve, for better or for worse, and I just think that she's the fucking GOAT.
Yeah. One thing too about, I feel like I do owe Yuko an apology for hating her after the Cowardly audition, because after Kumiko lost the soul event, I'm like, okay, Yuko, I know how you feel.
I know how you feel.
Now I've been there.
I've been there. What do it take?
I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game.
It's all fun and games until it's you, man.
Until it's you on that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's the genius of that too, because like, we don't know Cowdy, right? Like they know Cowdy. Yeah. So we're just like, well, we spent all this time with Reina, and she's clearly better, so she should play. And then like we're kind of shoes on the other foot, and we're like, oh no. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think even I know when we all watched it, we're all rooting for Kumiko. And it hurts when she doesn't get it. So we kind of have that. I mean, I know how I felt when that was, by the way, the tension that result scene was insanely.
Oh my God. And the choice to play the season 1 track
into Sound Euphonium. Just diabolical. I feel it. I understand her. And so just VTB, bro. So that's my third. That's your fourth.
Yeah. So my fourth was
Natsuki.
well, actually, no, Yuko was my fifth, but then Natsuki was fourth.
Yeah.
So
Which
your fourth
leaves three. It leaves number 3 for you,
and number 4 for you, which is the same character.
and number 4 for you,
I'm
which
sure.
is
So
Kanapi.
yeah, this is a complete stunner as well. The fact that Kanapi has wormed her way all the way up to my favorite non-Kumire character in UFO. I certainly would not have thought that was going to happen after Chikai. And I liked Kanade and Chikai, to be clear. So like I did already really like her, but she was not even close to my top 3 favorite characters in all of UFO. But yeah, after season 3, man, just she's the goat. What else can I say? Like the way her like love of Kumiko materializes throughout the season, and sort of the desperation she feels almost at Kumiko winning the Soli, and it really comes through. And then in particular, like how for Kanade it was about the fact that she wanted to be up there playing with her on that stage, and like I think that moment really kind of nails her whole sort of journey as a character throughout season 3, where she's pushing. She's like, well, Kumiko, you have to win the Soli. It's almost like she is projecting her own personal frustration at her own failure onto Kumiko, in a sense that it's like, well, you at least got to beat her, right? It's like she looks up to Kumiko so much, and she wants to see Kumiko at least succeed. But really, deep down, what it was always about for her is that Kanade wanted to play with her, and the fact that she's not going to get to. That hurt bad. That was brutal, man. And then ultimately the fact one thing that we didn't talk about with the finale was the scene where Kumiko passes on Hibike Euphonium to Kanade, and to Mayu as well. But the thing I love about it is that like Kanade's like, yeah, you always play that song whenever you're angsty and depressed. Like, like we just associate that with you. Like, oh, Kumiko's got shit going on. We hear UFO in the background. The fact that she just like had that acknowledgement was such a fun little character moment. And that's what Kanade's filled with. She just always has those moments, man. She's such a fun character. She can be, if I don't know, we need to come up with a name for Kanade if Mayu is Osama bin Laden, because
That's ISIS. I thought we said she's ISIS.
She's okay. She's just ISIS, yeah, because she's a little terrorist.
Yeah,
she's a little terrorist herself.
I know who the leader of ISIS is. ISIS has a new leader. It's fucking Kanapi.
It's Kanade, yeah. But she's got so many great moments like that. Her relationship with Kumiko is one of my favorite dynamics between any two characters in the series, and it really sells that sort of like that lineage. I think that so much of UFO is about. Kanade looks up to Kumiko in similar ways that I think Kumiko might have looked up to Asuka, and her own senpai. And that
the first years are going to be annoyed about hearing about Kumiko senpai from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Headcanon for sure, by the way, is that Kanade is the president in the
because the vice president.
Yeah, that's for sure the headcanon. And that I wonder if that actually is in the novels.
I would like to see that, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I understand why they didn't do anything with that here, because
I'm actually annoyed. I wish we had again, I think that the idea of and I guess we got that by Kumiko, the flash forward to Kumiko as the instructor, but I do think that like showing that the club lives on beyond, their graduation, I think is important for this idea of lineage. But I guess they covered that anyway, but it would have been nice to see. I wanted that, and can't have them all, but
yeah.
Again, some of my going back to my qualms of the finale of it was satisfying but rushed. But
yeah.
I think you said it best. I agree with everything you said about Kanapi. I think that she's, pretty. I love her. I just love who she is. I think that she is very rough around the edges. I think that I love how the narrative disarms her. She kind of like really wants to come off and project as this very strong kind of figure, and she's really just like just like us for real.
Yeah.
And underneath that mask that she wears is like this really sweet, kind girl who really cares about the people around her. And I think, to see kind of like, her Mayu kind of have the same fears that she had, are like really, again, really ties into how tight UFO is as a whole, like really
Yeah.
kind of ties all these loose ends together, and like how problems don't disappear just because you solve them once, and there's new people that have to contend with it, and it's like this kind of uphill battle. But you know I think really what stands out is kind of just like this admiration, like you said, for Kumiko, how much she loves, and how she is she's this very honest figure in the narrative, where she is very perceptive of others, the way that it's such a euphonium of her, the way she tells Kumiko,
Yeah.
like, Mayu's full of shit. It's like,
Yeah.
don't let her
Yeah.
fool you. Like, if she didn't want this, she wouldn't keep asking. And
Yeah.
how
She's
annoyed
brutally honest. Yeah.
Kanopi is with Mayu, and how Kanopi even senses like kind of threat that Mayu presents. How honest she is, how like she has like these moments where she can be like kind of scathing and biting and kind of mean, and she does it in private. And sometimes she just, that scene after they both get that cut, in the in the training camp post audition scene, right? She has like that conversation with Kumiko, and she was really great. And I think that really they needed a character like Kanopi to really tie kind of everything together, this idea of lineage, of heritage, and that thing we keep repeating over and over because it's so critical to season 3. I thought was pretty profound. And yeah, man, I didn't think she'd make my top 5 after, when I rewatched Chikai. I was like, she's really fun and I really like her. And then it wasn't until OnCon where it really like, oh,
Yeah.
she's so fucked. She's like, what about Kosaka? Why are you not on Kosaka's team?
Yeah.
And
She's one of us. She's one of us.
yeah, dude, she's just like,
Yeah.
she's the goat. And she's like
Yeah.
prodding, and she doesn't, when she fucks with people, she does it because it's like she wants people to kind of reach their natural ending, and also because she's just a natural troll. It's love the fucking
She's such a
shit.
troll. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And
I
Ridika is
love the
really
scene
the only
with
person that makes her
Meltamu.
happy.
Yes.
Oh,
But yeah, but when she gives Meltamu the soda can after she knows that he's in the mud after getting dumped. No, it just goes to show like just how sweet of a person she is on the inside.
yeah.
Once you
And
crack through that trolling exterior, and
a lot of
yes, her
people don't like
dynamic
her.
with Rudika is really great as well.
A lot of people don't like her. I wish that we got more. We got the whole of the season 2 novels adapted, because she's pretty special. I think we talked about.
I will say I did see a lot of people turn on her in season 3 in a positive direction. There were quite a few people I know that were like either just straight up didn't like her from Chikai, or
I
like
was not
mid on her.
the hottest on her.
But a lot of people did really come around on. I mean, even myself, and I did like Kanade. In fact, if we ranked this after Chikai, Kanade might have made my top 10, but would not have been anywhere near my top 5, and certainly for me, all the way up at number 3, behind the only 2 characters that were ever going to be our top 2. I think the only question is it 1 Kumiko, 2 Dana for you, or is it the other way around? I don't think there's any question when it comes to me.
So actually, my number 2 is Ridika. And
oh yeah, of course.
I gotta be honest,
because you love eggs.
I love it. I love. Let me tell you something. The joy of a soft-boiled egg, nothing beats it.
I will say,
a jammy. What about like a little 7-minute egg?
Oh, 100%. But I was combing through Liz to find the clip where Mizore is showing her how to tie her reed, because I used that in the short I did on the finale. And as I was like scrubbing through all the scenes with Rudika, like her little theme in Liz, I just fucking love that theme so much.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think it's so funny how much Ushio and Yamada both loved it, that they just like, let's just make 7 variations of this and just keep using it over and over again, because they just adored it. And yeah, who can blame them?
But
I will say too, the other honorable mention, a big honorable mention that we have not mentioned at all is Hazuki. Because I will say, I adore Hazuki. Yeah,
goat.
she's got tons of great content. She had more great. One thing we didn't mention about the finale is like low key. One of my favorite little shots is the fact that when the performance ends, Hazuki's just on stage sobbing. I just love it. You know, she finally made it to this point, to this stage, and got to play with them all. And yeah, the fact that she just breaks
And she
down
fucking
as
did
soon as
it.
it's over, she deserved it. Yeah,
I also love when she makes the first cut in for the first audition when she's
yeah,
like
that's such a
that,
good
and that
moment.
cut of her and like just like the really
Yeah,
smeary arms of her, like just like silently celebrating, really happy, like well with tears. I fucking love her.
yeah.
She's to go. Ridika was another kind of honorable mention. Cowdy is another really nice character. I was sad that the Gotos did not make an appearance in
Oh yeah,
season
we did.
3.
Yeah,
I love how they call them the Gotos,
the Gotos. Yeah,
Rico and Goto. So, I love them, and I thought that they were like really, they were rocks of like the bass section and everything.
hmm
I actually, despite what you guys may think, I don't hate Shuichi. I actually really liked his content in season 3, and I really like kind of his content in season 1 and 2, and I think he's like a good friend to Kumiko. I don't really
hmm
see him as more than that, but I do like him, and I don't want people to misconstrue. I don't think
yeah,
he has enough juice as a character, much like Cowdy and these other characters, but UFO is really special that it has so many characters that we can have
yeah.
this conversation about. I mean, Subome, Subomu, is it Subomu or Subome? Subome
Tsubame.
is, huh?
I think it's Tsubame.
Subame. I get confused. She has
It,
similar
it
names.
might be Tsubame though. I don't know. But there's also Kabe-chan Senpai.
Yes, Kabe-chan,
Love
who by
her.
the way was in the little montage at the end,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
again I
yeah,
wish we got her. She was great in Chikai.
yeah.
There's just so many characters in UFO that are special. Nishia Sensei, Michi Sensei, who's really, really
Mamiko. Oh my god, we haven't
Mom
mentioned Mamiko.
Mamiko, who by the way,
Now I'm questioning myself. Actually, I'm wondering.
show
Mamiko might
stealer.
should have been. I can't believe I forgot about her. She might be in my top 8. I might have made a mistake.
Mamiko's a show stealer in every scene that
Yeah,
she was in this season.
yeah.
I thought that just kind of, before we get into Kumiko, I think Monica can have the last word of the honorable mentions. We can talk about her a little bit. The fact that she is doing Kumiko's makeup, I think is important because I
hmm
think that Mamiko kind of in this season kind of represents this adult in Kumiko's life that that Kumiko saw grow into one, where she pays for her own stuff. She has the respect of her parents and particularly her father, which I think is like really important.
Yeah,
And I think that Mamiko kind of like doing her makeup, saying like you're gonna there's like this womanhood that describes, right, like this, like you're growing up. And I think I even tweeted like my little girl's all grown up. That's how I felt. Like I
yeah,
felt like my baby girl is all grown up going to her concert, and Mamiko is the one that's like putting her face on and doing that. And I think that's like, there's a lot of scenes with Mamiko in the season that are really good. The conversation with the three Oh My Women about the future and like how real and how great the
yeah.
banter and the dialogue is. But that scene in particular, and then like where Mamiko kind of flips the mirror and everything, it kind of shows like this young woman who, and I think that's a moment that I also thought like she's all grown up. Like that's really when it dawned how over it was. And I think it's important that Mamiko is the one that delivered that scene, not just as a big sister. Again, this idea of lineage in family, right? And
Yeah.
like the whole show, but like kind of like showing like, okay, like you are grown.
And Mamiko found something that she's good at and that fulfills her, and she chased it. And that's something that Kumiko herself takes inspiration from. And especially love the little like resolution with the dad too, where Kumiko's dad was like, yeah, I kind of fucked that up. So Kumiko, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna learn from my mistakes for you.
My bad.
Yeah. But
So
yeah.
she's the goat, and obviously, like we've said a lot about her about in season 2. But watch any of our videos if you want to know about Mamiko and stuff. But she's really kind of integral character to UFO. So also
Mhm.
surprised that Aoi didn't really make an appearance. I thought that kind of like the way that she
Mhm.
left music behind, I think was pretty relevant to Kumiko. And I was wondering if that would make some sort of appearance, but she didn't, especially as a childhood friend. But so yeah, so obviously number 1 and number 2, Kumiko and Rena. I've thought about this a lot. I don't know who's number 1 and who's number 2.
There's
I
no
know you know who's number 1
yeah,
and number 2.
for me, obviously number 2 for me is Vena, and number 1 is obviously Kumiko.
I admire different things about them.
Yeah.
Like I think obviously Kumiko is better writing because she's the protagonist and she's like, the bulk of the character development.
I like straight up think Kumiko's character arc in UFO, especially I've now in season 3's done it. I just think it's the best.
Yeah, it's
Like,
pretty
it's just goated.
like it's up there with like, with Yamako and Rakugo. She's Rakugo levels of writing. Up there with Araragi, who I despise, but I can, game recognizes game.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hand. I'm not putting.
I'm not. Under no circumstances you gotta hand it a certified lover boy, certified pedophile. Wop wop wop. I'm sorry, Kendrick.
It's kind of like what is there even left to say about Kumiko?
There's really nothing to say. We've said it.
That's what we spent the first 90 minutes of this podcast doing, is talking about Kumiko and Reina.
Jack, the last 9 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The last 9 years we've talked about Kumiko and Reina. Really both of them in particular in this podcast. I don't have much more to say other than the goats.
This exercise was much more about the other characters that we haven't talked about yet.
Because I don't have much more to add. I don't really know who's 1 and who's 2 for me. It depends on the day. I think more days than not it's Kumiko than Reina, but I think that Reina, the shit that you guys don't like about her, I love. Do you know what it fucking takes to vote? I don't have that in me.
I think that you might say Kumiko's the best, but Reina's your favorite.
I don't even know if that's true.
You think?
I don't know if that's true. I just know that the decision Reina made is not one I could do.
Yeah.
I want you guys, I want you at home to really, really, let's just say, for all intents and purposes, Mayu's better. Let's just say that you're like, oh, I thought Kumiko. Let's just say that in that moment you thought Mayu was better. Could you make that decision? I want you to think about that. And I want you to be honest with yourself, because I know that I couldn't. I know that I could not make that decision. And I think that's why Reina's special.
I'd make the selfish choice.
Because it's so close. Yeah. And I think that I'm like, nobody else would know. And that's why it's tough. That's why it's difficult. So
that's why she's special.
That's why she's special. And I think Kumiko is special for everything that we've said over the last 2 hours and 17 minutes. And really over the last 9 years, over, I don't know how many hours of videos that we've done and how many tweets that we've made and how many conversations we've had in private or with other people about her. I mean, there's not much. I wrote a letter. My friend turned 35 this year, and her partner asked like the people closest to her to like write letter to kind of like say like what does like this person mean to you over like your friendship, and we've been friends I've been friends with her since I was 17 years old. So it's been a very long time. I'm 30. Mm-hmm. I'm about to be 32. So it's been a long time. And in the letter, one of the things I close with, I say that, one of the things I'm most proud of and happy about our friendship is that I really know that there's nothing that has been left unsaid. I've said everything. We have said everything to each other over these last, whatever it's been, 15, 16 years. And I feel that way about UFO, and I feel that way about Kumiko, and Reina, really, there's just nothing left. I think, Jack, you'd probably feel the same way.
Yeah.
I'm sure we both have longer video content pieces that will drop sometime this year. But I think we've said all that we've ever wanted to say about her, about both of them. And I take a lot of peace in that this thing I care about a lot. I've said everything that I've wanted to say.
No, 100%. I mean, Kumiko for me is a character that I both deeply relate to and also take inspiration from. And that didn't change at all in season 3. And in fact, I think one interesting angle for me personally, and this is probably something I'll get a little bit more into if I am able to make a long form video on season 3, but that I'm in such a different place personally now than I was when season 1 and season 2 came out. You know, when season 1 came out, I was a freshman in college, and the future that I saw for myself was very different than what my present is now, and also different than what I see my future, you know, sitting here. And so I've sort of like, meanwhile, but for Kumiko, it's different, right? Because 9 years haven't passed for you know, for the characters in this world. And so I think that like watching season 3 play out from a sort of different perspective on a personal level a little bit, because there are aspects of Kumiko's character arc in season 3 that now I feel like I've been through myself. And so seeing her go through some of those things, you know, is deeply relatable. And then ultimately where I think her character arc goes in the end is very powerful, and something that, you know, I still take inspiration from her as a character in general today. It's beautiful. You know, she's my goat. She's been my name on Twitter for how many years now?
And it ain't. I'm not fucking leaving.
And I'm not fucking leaving. I saw all these people on Twitter posting like, "This is my last tweet about UFO."
Because, not me,
like,
baby.
Not
Another
me, yeah.
10 years. 4 more years. 4 more years. I am not leaving. Anywhere. I will tweet UFO whenever I feel like, because this is my.
Because my love for the show is not going anywhere.
My poor girlfriend's heart for listening to me yap about UFO. She has no idea what the fuck UFO is, and I'm just like, just know that these girls in band, this is very important to me.
This means something.
This shit. Every person in my life, most of them don't watch anime, know what UFO is. They know that UFO is very important to me, and that it's just a huge part of my life, and I'm glad that I loved it the way I remembered. I rewatched the whole thing leading up to this, chronologically in order. We watched some of it because you were visiting in the middle of that rewatch. We were both like, man, this shit's really good.
This shit reaps.
And the fact that it ended at this high note and it blew away every expectation I had is pretty remarkable. The staff at KyoAni is 1 of 1, and UFO is 1 of 1, and Takeda wrote something that's 1 of 1, even if I don't always agree with her story decisions. Yuki Haneda takes balls to do what you did.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's just much like the show. It's, you know, this pod has to end, and I think after 2 hours and 30 minutes, I think this is as exhaustive a podcast that we could have done. I think our other podcast that we did was also 2 hours. I don't know who's doing it like us, but you know what I mean?
We keep going too, but we got to stop it somewhere.
We got to stop somewhere because we don't want to be redundant. I mean, the other one was an hour and a half. This went 2.5 hours.
You know,
I hope you enjoyed these ramblings. Really got the gang back together. Jack, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.
Please watch Jack's shorts. He did a short for every single episode of Sound Euphonium. It's the first time I say Sound Euphonium. Season 3. And we didn't say the name of the show the entire time. We called it UFO.
That's true. We just call it UFO. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, last thing. Yeah. That's not Hibike. It's called UFO. Okay. Last closing thoughts. Final thoughts on this podcast.
The final thoughts on this show.
The final thoughts on this show. It's fucking UFO. The anime tag is #anime UFO. The staff calls it UFO. Everybody in JP calls it UFO. Everybody who watched it as it aired originally, because I was there. Because you know what I did when I watched this fucking show? I name search when search used to work and mean something. I used to search Hibike. I used to search Hibike Euphonium. I used to search Sound Euphonium. I used to search every fucking character's name to find who were the other gremlins that were tweeting about the show. So I know that all you people that are like, I tweeted about this when it aired and I called it Hibike. You're a fucking liar. Because I knew all 12 of us, and you weren't any of them, because that's what life was like back then. So I'm glad that you guys call it Hibike now. You can have that. It's called fucking UFO. Because when I went to Uji and I went to the fucking store, and they're like, UFO, and I'm like, hi, UFO. And they gave me a little UFO bag and a little UFO map. So it's fucking UFO.
That's
I'm not
really
fucking leaving.
That's the last step on our or at least you've already been there, but my UFO journey is making the Uji pilgrimage later this year.
November, baby.
We're
November,
almost
baby.
there.
We're gonna do the UFO, not Hibike pilgrimage. I've done it, and they all called it UFO. I love you guys, and until the next piece.